Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is another episode of Maintaining Frame. Hopefully, Rumble will stay up this time. It kind of died last time. I don't know why. So I'm going to keep an eye on it to make sure that it's running. I don't know if that's like something. Maybe they got DDoS. I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
There's always something. It's always something new.
Well, I mean,
state of chaos.
Yeah, the internet is it is a place, and
how is my volume, by the way? Is that good?
sounds good.
All right, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, I think it's good. All right.
I'm holding up my end here. Good volume.
Okay.
I know it's a low bar.
Okay, so today we're gonna be looking at a couple things that seem to be like lining up. So if you have your pattern recognition sensors turned up just a little above average and you spend any time on the internet, you might have noticed that men are getting fed up and they're starting to behave in a way that women are not comfortable with. And I don't mean like in a way that's dangerous, but just sort of like, you know, making, I don't know, they're trolling the women online, and it's really upsetting, and it's upsetting all the women. And I think that it's something that we should be looking at. And so I got this, someone sent me a Substack.
Anonymous source.
Yeah, well, sort of. I mean, it's somebody, I don't want to get into like naming names, but somebody sent me this Substack as a means of making an argument because of that tweet that is still, by the way, still people are commenting on it. The tweet where I said,
okay, yeah, go over that.
Ladies, yeah, I'll just give a little refresher really quick. I have to bring it back up because I don't want to like misquote myself.
No.
But in the tweet, I said, let me see, I have to scroll down. It was like a few days ago, you know, like I'd moved on, but apparently others have not.
Well, I mean,
so
sometimes you just hit a nerve, you know. You can't really predict when that.
Yeah. So I made a tweet, and maybe you guys can help me because I don't know if this is a good ratio or a bad ratio. I don't know. Like I've heard people say so and so got ratioed on Twitter. I don't know what that means, and I don't know if I'm doing well or not. But I made this tweet. Yep, I'm gonna display it. Let me just grab the link and put it in here. And then I will share this tab and put it on the screen.
I get to see it. Okay, all right.
Yeah. So now you guys can see it. I just had to get it.
Yeah, I know.
And it goes a little something like this. I said, ladies, if men had any intention of actually oppressing you, they would. And you wouldn't be able to do anything about it. But they don't. And it's really shitty that you live under this impression that they hate you enough to do it, much less that they do it now. So this is sort of me saying that there are women out here that believe that men oppress them. Those are the feminists. And then there are the women out here that believe men don't oppress them, but could oppress them or would oppress them. Yeah, without feminism, or they would just be like, it's in their nature to just do it, right? Mm-hmm. And it stirred so much shit, okay, when I said this. And it was, I mean, I guess this is like part of a broader series of like, you know, conversations that were going on. I was simply making the point, like the truth is that men wanted to oppress women, they would just be oppressed. Because if everything comes down to the exercise of force, like you can have laws and you can like make, you know, policies and all of this, but all of that is just to keep people civil. And if people just stop being civil, men win. And I know it sounds mean, but it's the truth. But the thing is, men don't want to do that. It's the last thing they want to do. They'll like be willing to put up with all this other shit, right? And I don't know if they even have it in them to do it at all, but the point is they can. And the fact that women online, whether they are feminists or not, right? Or whatever they identify with, doesn't matter. Most of them have a line that they won't, where they basically live in fear of men generally. I think that they just fear men, right?
Okay, I'm going to get in here because I got a commentary. All right. I want to point out that this is a framework that we're all operating in. And the reason why I say that is, yes, in terms of force or even just walking away, men are the ones who determine what happens. So men don't even have to enact any force. They just have to stop doing the jobs that keep society running. and then that's it. We're done. Okay.
Yeah.
So we need consent, men's consent, to keep the society running. And at this point, it's really mostly men. It hasn't been mostly men throughout all of human history. I mean, go back before the Industrial Revolution, and society wouldn't exist without women's labor. But now in this era, that is the case. The case is that men are the predominant parties keeping this society running. They withdraw their consent, it ceases to run. Now, what I wanted to say is that saying that men oppress women or could oppress women exists within a framework. And that framework is that they would ever make the collective decision to do so. Because in my opinion, they never would. So, I mean, and these women who are responding to you, Brian, live in that framework where they believe that men would make the collective decision to oppress women. I don't live in that framework. Like, I don't see that actually happening. What I see happening is if there's a situation where men think that restricting women's freedom protects them, they might do that. But that's only because they don't want to see women dying. And that's it.
Yeah. It's to protect them, sure.
Yeah, so they can do that in the context of protecting women, right? I don't believe that men... And one thing is, if men were going to take away women's right to vote, they would have done it when the majority of women were telling them not to give women the right to vote. People just memory hold this. Most women, during the whole suffrage and suffragette and suffragist movements, were against women's vote. Okay, so the majority of women said, no, don't do this. It was men in power and suffragettes, well, actually the suffragists really, and a lot of political stuff going on at the time that led to this situation. If men collectively were going to take away women's vote, it would be when the majority of women agreed that women shouldn't have it, and also when they had the perfect reason to, based on equality, right? Every group of disenfranchised men has had to protect the state that gives them the right to have an opinion about it. Like, if you have influence on the state, first you have to prove that you are going to protect the state that gives you those rights or those privileges. That's the first thing that men have to do. They have to prove that they are willing to die for the state. You know, men proved that in the U.S. in the Revolutionary War. They literally fought and died to construct the state that gave them the rights, right? Lower class British men proved that in World War I. Black men proved that in the Civil War, right? So every group of men has had to go to war and protect the civilization that could potentially grant them rights first before they got those rights. So if men were ever going to not give women the vote, it would have been when the majority of women wanted them to not do it, were agreed with women not getting the vote, and also they could have simply said, well, you have to go to war first, like every other group of disenfranchised men has throughout all of human history. They could have just done that then. Now that the majority of women want to keep the vote, and we have just completely rendered invisible the entire edifice of men's sacrifice for the society that gives people the right to vote. Like, we don't even talk about a Memorial Day. Remember that tweet that I did that literally everybody got on my case for? Well, it was a recognition that we don't recognize the sacrifices that men make for society, right? When we don't recognize it, it's the causal situation is this: we gave women something we would never have given men if they had not proven that they were willing to sacrifice for the society that granted it. Then we had to make this whole edifice of nonsense to pretend that women weren't getting this, that somehow society owed this to women but not to men, because society uniquely expects women to sacrifice for it. You know, it's ridiculous. But anyway, so there's this whole edifice, and then we have this belief that society oppresses women, men oppress women essentially, which then leads to this attitude. And like I said, I don't believe that men can oppress women. And the reason why is because they take too much of their identity around protecting and providing for them. If there was a group of men who suddenly changed, their identity changed overnight, you'd have to have a majority of men's identity change overnight to not wanting to protect and provide for women. And I can't see that happening. What I can see happening is, again, women are self-destructive. Women are killing themselves. They're cutting off their breasts. And we have to do something to protect women from themselves. That's what I see. But it won't be motivated because, we want to oppress women because they hate them. It'll be motivated by women are being so self-destructive that the only way for them to continue to be preserved is to go back to this idea of masculine authority. Right? Do you see what I'm saying? To see the difference?
Yeah, I do. But look, I get it. You're critiquing my tweet, but I said it to make a point.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm in the first sentence or the second sentence.
I'm not even critiquing your tweet. I'm critiquing the mentality. Like, when
I
would see this tweet and they say, he's just threatening me with oppression, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, he is appealing to a framework that you have constructed in which men would ever oppress women. Right?
Yeah.
You're appealing to that framework. They are the ones that believe that. Maybe you do as well. I don't believe it. Like, I just don't. I don't have to. It's optional.
Sure. Yeah.
I do not believe that men would oppress women. It's why men's anger doesn't frighten me.
Yeah.
It's because
So
I've seen so much of men. They don't hate women. I don't think it's in them to hate women.
Yeah.
I don't think it's in them to construct a society that harms women. Anyway, that's my point.
Yeah. So anyway, this is just like, so I got this Substack. Somebody sent it to me as a reply to this. Okay. There were some other things sort of similar going on. Like,
ratio's fine, by the way.
Yeah, I know. It's a me in the chat are saying that it's good. Like, if I got more likes than comments, that means it's good. I also got more likes than both comments and quote tweets. Although I was called a pick me, which is really funny.
Brian, you pick me.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. They see the Vivian James thing and they're like, oh, it's a woman. No wonder. It's a handmaiden. But anyway, so this is the Substack I was sent. It's called The Opposite Sexual Revolution. And I haven't read it yet. But I think based on some of the stuff I've heard, the idea we're gonna go through it, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Are we actually get to Lauren Southern's video too, or?
Yeah. So yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. It depends on, there's a lot going on. We also got there's tweets and there's a lot of fighting about this. The woman question has come up again. And, I just want to say that I've been seeing it going around. I'm like, I feel like I coined that because I've been saying that for a little while. It's basically like when people are talking about all of these different things going on in the world, and the last thing they want to do is be like, wait a minute, did women have something to do with this? Like, it's the last thing that people want to say. And I think it's probably the most important. I mean, I think all the other stuff is a distraction, especially when it comes to like race and social class and religion, and nationality and ethnicity. I think all those things are distractions. I think that you have to look at men and women in the space, what's going on there, what's that dynamic, what's going on with their families, what's going on with their children, and you'll address it. So,
yep. We're the breeding colony, and when we cease to breed, we cease to be. I just want to say one last thing before we go. Let's see. The reason why I put this in this framework is I am 100% sure that our society will collapse simply because of this narrative that men oppress women, or even can manage to find the motivation to do it. Like, it's theoretically possible. Theoretically, if you bioengineered men to take away that instinct to protect and provide for women, theoretically, they could oppress women. That's a lot of bioengineering. That's a lot of like alien intervention there. Theoretically, it was aliens. Theoretically, I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was totally aliens. So it's like, what's really going to happen is that women are going to fear-gasm themselves into destroying society.
Well, yeah, that's already starting to happen.
100% on women. 100%. And men are going to continue to try to protect and provide for women. And in the context of our society, that means protect and provide for women's rights, women's freedoms, women's liberty, women's jobs, whatever else. They're going to continue to do that to the bitter end. And it will be women who destroyed their ability to do so. It will not be men. And that's what this narrative, that's one of the other things that I don't like about this particular narrative of men oppressing women. It takes the responsibility off of women. Okay, and I just wanted to point that out. So let's I guess begin the article, since that's
all right. Let's get into this. So I was sent this, and the general, what I suspect is that the thrust of the article is going to be something along the lines of, well, I know feminism went too far, but the male backlash is going to make things worse. And if you are a man and you react to this, then you're basically contributing to the dialectic, which makes things worse. So my backlash, I think, I don't know. So let's see. We know it's the case that if you know their name, they're in the game, meaning that if the establishment media machine gives a great deal of coverage to an individual, whether positive or negative, it's because that individual is somehow involved in pushing the establishment agenda. And therefore, the establishment wants you to know about them. Hence the phrase, there's no such thing as bad publicity. If the establishment press doesn't want you to know about someone or something, it ignores it. I think there's a lot of assumptions in that first paragraph, by the way. I mean, like, we got some coverage, but we weren't in on anything. Right? I mean, like, Gamergate got a bunch of coverage. Were they in on it too?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The thing is,
go ahead.
We got coverage, but it was coverage that framed everything in a way that was completely distorted, right? Gamergate was distorted.
Yeah, but like
men's issues activism is distorted. Like, I mean,
yes.
There might be like a really hidden sect of people who are even more radical than us. Like, and I don't mean radical as in like in any way seeking some
like in a way that could be. Okay.
I don't mean it in just like a destructive solution. I mean just radical in terms of what we're willing to conclude and what we're willing to say that we need to challenge. Like, if there might be some more radical enclave, but I don't.
Yeah.
Well, point us to it. Like,
well, yeah, maybe. I'm just going to say, for my part, anyway, feel whatever you want about it, but this first paragraph is very, very speculative. It's just like, well, if somebody's big, it's because they're in on it. Like, I don't buy that. I don't buy that at face value. You'll have to prove it.
I buy it a little. I think
sometimes I think that the algorithm, and I've said this, the algorithm will promote people who support a different narrative, but sometimes those people don't know that they're part of that.
Yeah.
And I think,
Well, but also, like, the algorithm will support something that is familiar to people. Like, the more radical you are, the more radical your critique of society. Like, if you fall into a camp where you have a group of people, like a substantial already existing population of people that recognizes this particular group of people as the enemy, you're gonna get more attention because that's familiar. Yeah. But if you're doing a genuine critique of like the fundamental aspects of society, it's not familiar. People don't know where to slot it, and so they just reject it in a lot of ways. So I mean, it's not even just the algorithm is mean. It's the fact it's just human nature. Like, you need things that are new are not familiar, and they have sort of a repulsive quality to them. So you can appeal to this dynamic that he's talking about in the first paragraph without even having any kind of intention. But I also agree with you. Like, sometimes everything can be followed off a cliff. How about that?
Yeah, I'm just saying that, like, I feel like maybe you have to be like a subscriber to this person's Substack to, like, get a sense of like a theme she talks often about the establishment. I don't know. But when somebody opens up by just saying, like this, making this kind of claim, I'm skeptical because I want to see what are you going to drive this towards? That's why. I don't know. I'm just I'm not buying it right off the bat, but let's see. It's not just the case for people, though. It's also the case for cultural offerings, in terms of TV shows, films, and particularly books. Thousands of excellent books are published every year, but for the most part, their authors toil away in obscurity as the proverbial starving artist, very rarely acquiring anything remotely resembling fame or fortune. The vast majority of authors have to resort to self-publishing and self-publicizing, wholly ignored by the publishing houses. The odds of a submitted manuscript getting published are around 1% and totally dismissed by the media. Yeah, I agree with that because I've talked about elitism in the arts specifically and how that's changed things, but again, I don't know that that's necessarily to serve some cabal or anything but I think it's just like an attitude. Therefore, when major newspapers publish lengthy excerpts of new books, especially debut books from novice authors, we should pay attention. I wrote an article on this theme once before regarding the debut book from first-time young author Louise Perry, The Case Against the Sexual Revolution. Perry's tome enjoyed 3 lengthy excerpts in the Daily Mail and was trumpeted across the press, left-wing and right-wing alike, as a seminal masterpiece. Right then I thought, how does this play into the agenda? See, So Louise Perry was known before she wrote this book. Wasn't she like a feminist activist, like kind of a bigger name, or am I misremembering that? You know, like Posey Parker was another one.
I just want to say, Brian, you're asking me if somebody was famous. You're asking me to remember a name and recall something.
Yeah, I know. I'm asking the audience. I more than
an amoeba. Like
I think. What I'm saying is that I don't think that Louise Perry is unknown. I'm saying that I think that... So, Louise Perry is like Posey Parker. I don't want to say Parker Posey because I like her. Posey Parker, who is the sort of turf, / gender realist, whatever you want to call it, that has been in the news, or was. She hasn't been lately. Amongst others, like Julie Bindel, I think, is another one. So these are like feminist activists that have basically just gone against the trans agenda. And then Louise Perry is kind of taking it further in a way where she's like basically saying, you know what, the sexual revolution was a mistake. Or I think that's what her book is about. I'm not sure. But my point is I don't think she's unknown. I think that there's a bit of an assumption coming out of this, but maybe I'm wrong or I'm strawmanning this person. I'm not sure. So, anyway.
Yep.
Right then. Oh, go ahead.
No,
what?
I just assume that you're fine to go continue.
Yeah. I'm gonna keep going.
I'll try to contribute as I can. Okay.
All right. So I read it and drew my conclusions, which you can read about here. I'm not gonna open that. In short, the book has been promoted so heavily because it was meant to be a key cog in the imminent social shift away from arch libertarianism towards its exact opposite.
We've never.
Arch liberalism. Arch liberalism. Yeah. No,
Rein that in.
I don't know.
There was no.
Yeah, arch liberalism towards its exact opposite. Again, I don't know what arch liberalism means, but okay.
God, they don't even know what. Okay, they don't even know what freedom means.
Right.
Okay,
right.
Let's keep going.
All right. So when a couple of days ago, the Daily Mail excerpted at length another debut book from a young first-time author about matters pertaining to the sexual revolution, I knew immediately that this tome was meant to give us some major cultural cues about where we're going next. I purchased the Kindle edition. I know, but my rapidly deteriorating eyesight, I spent some time the other day stroking one of my hats. Mistaking it for a cat means backlit screens are much easier to read, and I read it a day. Why'd you tell me that? I read that paragraph section for no reason. Yeah, I know.
Woman, right?
I'm getting that.
Okay, how do you mistake a hat for a cat? Like,
I don't know.
Even I haven't made that mistake. I've sat on a cat though, because sometimes they conceal themselves.
Yeah. Not because it was particularly brilliant, although it is well written, but because it was so hideously, transparently clear what it is going to be used for.
Oh, good lord. Okay, incoming the paranoia.
Oh, God. Okay, here we go. The book, entitled 10 Men, charts the year of casual sex of the author and then 25-year-old Kitty Ruskin, a survivor of a childhood sexual assault. Ruskin eschewed sex and relationships until the age of 22, and soon afterwards decided she, quote, needed to make up for lost time, end quote, by sleeping with as many men as possible. Living in London and with an encyclopedic array of dating apps at her disposal. array, of dating apps at her disposal.
I got one this time, ha.
Yeah. She does not find it difficult to meet a multitude of suitors, but what she describes about her subsequent sexual encounters with them reads like the graphic descriptions of sexual abuse, because that's what it is. Within her year of exploration, she is raped twice. Both times the men do not use protection. Subjected to all sorts of non-consensual brutality, including choking and slapping so hard it leaves marks, and on every occasion is ultimately left humiliated, dehumanized, and as she puts it, discarded. It's a nauseating read and has little to distinguish it, despite the fact Ruskin is a middle-class professional with degrees from a top university, from an account of trafficking or prostitution. In fact, it might be a little bit worse than prostitution, because at least prostitutes get paid, whereas Ruskin actually ends up paying for her hideous encounters, as she on multiple occasions requires the morning after pill. On one such occasion, having recently been robbed, possibly by one of the men who raped her, purchasing the morning after pill pushes her bank account further into the red.
Why does she not have birth control?
Is this a true story or a fiction?
I don't know. Who knows? Like, all it is just another paranoid screed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it charts the year of casual sex. So you decided to be a sleut, and then you ran into some bad people, maybe? I mean, none of this is provable. Like, I don't know, like, what's the point of this?
The point is to engender more paranoia, essentially, among women. Because we can't have enough of that. Like, look.
Yeah.
Honestly, men are not bad. Like, the vast majority of men are decent human beings who are going to treat you reasonably decently unless you turn out to be a dick or a cunt. Oh, I can't say the C word, sorry. A coot. Okay?
A coot.
All right.
A cunt.
A coontalunt. Okay? All right. So, why are you doing this? Why are you going on an app for casual sex, putting yourself out there to to men who are only interested in that? Like, honestly, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you putting into your life? You don't think men don't have these stories themselves? They do. Like, they do. For example, before the whole apps came about, there used to be this college hookup culture, right? And it was gross. People would take advantage, men and women would take advantage of drunk individuals. Like, I've seen stats from college-age women of the time and the behavior that they admitted to engaging in. Like, I think something like 10% of them said they had used a weapon to get sex. And this is women, right? There is a seedy, sordid, casual sex culture. And if you want to be part of it, fine. But it has with it these really bad actors, male and female. And you're going to expose yourself to them. So if you don't want to, don't look for men or women who engage in this behavior. And believe me, they put it up front. They say they don't want relationships. Well, the vast majority of people who want to have sex without a relationship don't have your best interests in mind, male or female. I'm just going to say that. In my experience. They don't want to care about you. That's why they want casual sex. Right? Don't get into that culture. And if you get into that culture, it's your choice. You did not have to engage with these apps or the culture of hookups. All right, and the fact is, okay, what is the conclusion? Okay, we're going.
Well, I mean, let's. I mean, I want to see where this goes, because the story is not the important part of this. I think there's a point being made. We'll get to it in a second. So.
Okay.
Okay. So let me see. She proceeds to have a bad reaction to the emergency contraception, bleeding so profusely she nearly passes out, and is on the brink of requiring hospitalization. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't.
After pill.
Perhaps, I don't know. I mean, I don't think the morning after pill. I think there are complications with it. I don't know what they are.
No,
but
the morning after pill is to bring on a period. Like.
Oh, so you are supposed
to prevent implantation and bring on a period. That's it. That's all it does. You're not having a miscarriage with a morning after pill. What the hell is that? If she was bleeding so hard, bleeding so profusely she nearly passes out and is on the brink. Also you have to realize that a lot of this stuff is just hysterical. Like it's exactly.
Well, it sounds like it. Yeah. I mean, I want to see what the, well, let me just
morning after.
Let me just keep reading. I felt really deeply uncomfortable reading this book, not just because of the explicit sexual violence and all-around degradation described, but because I could not shake the increasing feeling this is just compounding her exploitation. So why'd she write the book, though? Did men make her do it? Here we have a still young, she's only turned 30, deeply traumatized rape and sexual abuse survivor who is suffering a range of mental health problems, including PTSD, anxiety, depression, and I strongly suspect substance abuse, platforming her trauma in forensic and graphic detail to the entire world. The book is the kind of deeply personal catharsis a trauma survivor might disclose to a seasoned, trusted therapist. She has one and is also on antidepressants, not the entirety of the world's media and cruel, unforgiving general public. She's using her real name and real face, and everyone who knows or will ever know her can read it. She will never be able to escape it or put it behind her, and when she's older and less acutely consumed with trauma, she might well want to do just that. The book reminded me a lot. Oh, go ahead.
How many times do you engage with something and get raped and then just go back to it? Like, I mean, I don't even want to eat something if it made me nauseous and made me vomit. It's like, you know how that is? You never want to touch it again.
Yeah.
But do you have no sense of self-preservation?
Well, I don't know if that's the point. I think she's still building to something else. I'm expecting something else, because remember, it's in response to my post about like how if men just decided, if they were to just decide one day to oppress women, it would just be done. Like they don't even have to physically like use force. They could just all quit. They could just all quit their jobs and that would be it. Like women would be powerless, And of course they wouldn't. No, I know they wouldn't do it. I know they wouldn't. But I'm saying they can, yet they don't. So the narrative that they're dangerous to women is ridiculous on its face, because men would never do that.
Something has to break in all of this.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that you either have to recognize that men are just not motivated to do it, or you have to recognize that women have a power that they are not taking responsibility for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and right. In this case, the like I said, they're going to feargasm our civilization to death. And this to me reads like, if this is genuine, why should people care about her self-preservation more than she does? Anyway, let's continue.
All right. The book reminded me a lot of the infamous 2010 Duke sex thesis, a graphic account written by then 22-year-old student Karen Owen about the men she had casual sex with at Duke University. These men treated her in a very similar manner to that depicted in Ruskin's book. Owen, however, never meant her thesis to go public, and when it did, with the attendant huge controversy and backlash, she, recognizing the catastrophic effects it could have on her personal and professional future, changed her name and disappeared from public view.
Can I just get in on this? Because I was here for that.
I just wanted to finish the paragraph. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. It was more, the Duke sex thesis ranked men on, incredibly shallow, objectifying, what feminists would term objectifying standards. In other words, these men had no standard, no worth in her life aside from use as a sexual means to get off. Now, I want to point that out first of all. And the way that she ranked them horrified people, because she ranked them in terms of, like genital size, I believe, looks, and a willingness to engage in sexual aggression that she enjoyed. Right? And I would honestly say to men, don't even play that game, because it's too dangerous. But she liked being choked. She liked being slapped. She liked being taken while she was incapable of saying no. And she openly expressed this that she sought this out, right? She openly expressed it, because this is the kind of behavior of people who engage in the really sordid aspects of the hookup culture. Not only do they seek out this kind of disregard from their sexual partners, they engage in it themselves. It's like one of the articles that I wrote way back when that got a lot of traffic and offended a lot of people is when I said that feminists will not get women to confess to all of the sexual abuse they experience, because that would mean recognizing all of the sexual abuse that they engage in as sexual abuse. And this really relates to the hookup culture. This is a group of people who are disregarding other people's sexual boundaries. And for whatever reason, they engage in this culture because they enjoy it. And they also engage in perpetuating it on other people. And that's the problem. The women who are in part of this culture are also engaging in this behavior. Right? They're also finding men who are incapable of saying no because they're too drunk or drugged, or they use a freaking weapon, and they rape them. Let's just put it right out there. The men and women in this culture are engaging in this kind of reciprocal abusive sexual behavior. And nobody wants to talk about it honestly, because nobody wants to include the female half of this, that women are seeking out this behavior from men, and they're also engaging in it towards men. Okay. I just wanted to point that out there, because that's what the Karen Owen Duke sex thesis was illustrating. She wanted this kind of behavior. She sought it out. She was a willing participant. Okay.
All right. So Ruskin, however, has intentionally submitted this tome to the public, and while she says she, quote, knows she's going to get a lot of hate, end quote, I don't think she's remotely prepared for the extent of it because of the way she concluded the book.
I think
her book is essentially...
probably thinks what we're saying is hate, honestly.
Yeah, I'm sure. Her book is essentially an excruciatingly acute example of exactly what the aforementioned Louise Perry's book is railing against: the pornified casual sex culture which endangers young women and completely warps their attitudes to relationships and sex. So it doesn't do anything. Yeah, it does nothing to men. Men are just acting natural. They're just being what they are. Yeah.
Yeah, this is absolute bullshit. Like, this is something that also harms men. I know men will talk about, or many men will say, oh, but it's not the same. Well, yeah, you're right, because it seems to be that men actually have a worse reaction to it. I'm gonna put it out there. Like, the actual, like, if you say to a man who accidentally gets into this hookup culture and gets punked out by a woman, if you ask him, oh, was that something that really damaged you? He probably would say no. And you ask the same thing of a woman, and she would say, oh, yes, it was deeply damaging. And then you look at their behavior. The man is more likely to engage in substance abuse. He's more likely to have problems with relationships. He's more likely to drop out of school or fail to be able to keep a job. He's more likely to have sexual dysfunction. That is, either he can't get it up or he becomes promiscuous. All right? He's more likely to end up homeless. He's more likely to end up, like I think I said, with a drug addiction. Well, I'll repeat that, with a drug addiction, right? He's more likely to drop out of society. Okay? When you look at the concrete effects of this on men, it's worse. So a man will say, no, I'm okay. But then in his behavior, you see that he isn't. All right? So it is the same. It is a problem for both men and women. And this is another thing that's radical. Like, us radicals are willing to acknowledge, even individuals like this who talk about how, oh, I'm discriminated against by the algorithm. They won't acknowledge this. All right. This is a reciprocal behavior. It's equally bad for men. This is damaging. You know, sucking men into this lifestyle is not good for them. It is not natural behavior, apparently. I mean, if it was, they wouldn't be having such dysfunction. Okay.
Well, she does like continue, and it does get a little interesting. So I read ahead a little bit. Rather than conclude there might be something wrong with this culture, however, Ruskin concludes that, just as indeed Perry does, that there's something wrong with men. Because Ruskin unbelievably declares, I had to reread this sentence several times to make sure I got it right, quote, you shouldn't have to get to know a guy before having sex with him, end quote. That's the extent of the trauma and indoctrination she's still under. After everything she's been through, she still believes that to be as physically intimate as it is possible to be with another person, and to be in a situation where you are inevitably hugely vulnerable, you shouldn't have to get to know the person first. This would be a stupid enough thing for a man to say. There are plenty of crazed women out there who could turn nasty on you in all sorts of ways. For a woman, it is delusional to the point of psychosis. The vast majority of violent criminals are men, and the only way to have a robust chance of discerning whether a handsome stranger in a bar is such a man is to get to know him first. Of course, men one knows can still be abusive, but if you take the time to get to know someone before becoming intimate, you've got a much sturdier chance of spotting red flags and calling it quits, rather than going home with him drunk for the first time you meet him and discovering then that he's a violent rapist.
Okay, I gotta get in on this. All right.
Okay.
There's plenty of crazed women out there who could turn nasty on you in all sorts of ways. Almost 10% of women said that they had used a weapon to get sex. So it's not a small number. You know, and again, when this happens, I think men are sideswiped by the actual negative emotional reactions that they have to this. We are, as a species, one of the most fundamental aspects of our psychology is based on the idea of sexual consent. And why is that? Because that is what drives our understanding of the other and sexual desire and being desirable. Like that is the source of all of these abstractions we see floating around. Is the fact that we can look, we have a sexual response to being desirable, or even a positive social response to being socially desirable. That's what drives our theory of mind. So when you have that violated, that essential aspect of being human and being respected as a human, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It is going to cause problems. So this is first nonsense. Men are vulnerable to this as well. Okay, just like women. And if we want to have a society worthy of the stars, we need to recognize that. Because otherwise, we're never going to get over these dark aspects of our psychology. All right? The vast majority of violent criminals are men. Most of them are aggressing against other men. And the ones who aren't are actually, female criminals who draw their victims among their intimate partners pretty close in number to men who do the same. Right? Once you remove violence against the stranger, women start to the proportion of female criminals who do that are much higher. Okay? So yeah, that's a pretty trivial. It's not. The other thing is that there is a subtlety to all of this. This woman is presenting all of this because she wants to prove that the world owes her to be able to have sex with any man and not have him turn sour on her. Right? The world owes that to her because she thinks men can do that with women. And first of all, it's based on a perception that's wrong. Men can't do that with women. Right? Men experience these negative sexual being raped, being forced, all of this stuff. They experience it too. So there's no male utopia that exists alongside a female dystopia in which men can just select any woman at any time and be completely assured that nothing is going to go wrong. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? That is so total bullshit. But she's going to use the fact that she thinks that men can have casual sex and women can't to prove that the world owes her a universe in which she's completely protected by any bad actors, even though she's inviting them into the most intimate scenario in her life. You see what I'm saying? And this person is completely unequipped to actually oppose that. Because the way that you oppose that is to say, men run the same risks, dear. There is no equality to be had here. There is no equality to be had here. You cannot expect a society to give you a situation where you can have casual sex with whomever you want and never have a negative experience. Society does not work like that, and men don't have that. So you're not entitled to it. Because this is how they make themselves entitled to things. They say, well, men get it. And then you can't say, well, actually, no, men don't get that. They don't get it.
All right.
They don't get to live a life free of fear. Okay, keep going.
No, they don't. They just have to.
Suck it
up. One of the first things we're taught as children is don't trust strangers, and they don't become any more trustworthy just because we're a bit older. You can only trust someone you know. You don't know someone you've only spent a drunken couple of hours in a bar with, Ergo, it's not safe to become intimate with them. So yes, you should have to get to know a guy or a girl before you sleep with them.
Absolutely. And what you should say is that men also need to do this, not just women. Continue, Brian.
Yeah. Therefore, that this is the conclusion of this book, that you shouldn't, makes it very clear to me that this author is being used and exploited, yet again, just as she has been so many times, by the publishing industry and media machine to push an agenda. Wait, so she couldn't have chosen to do that? Like this has to be...
They want to appeal to an ideal of women that they're utterly incapable of making their own choices. But then they don't realize that necessitates giving somebody who is capable of making women's choices for them. Like, she chose this. She is not a victim. Like...
Yep. The reaction to this book, and believe me, the publishing houses know this, is going to be utter horror and revulsion from more conservative quarters, using it as a stark example of just how depraved modern culture has become and how irreparably damaged its young women. Now, I agree with the assessment in a lot of ways. This book from Ruskin is an anguished howl of agony, depicting just how bad things have become. But the point is, what's it going to be used to facilitate?
Okay,
man,
this is really aggravating. I'm going to I want you to look at something. I'm going to try to find it. I mean, you can continue to read while I try to find it. That might be the best way to go.
All right.
I really think people need to see this and think about this, because part of the problem is this asymmetric. Like, people are pretending that women, and it is pretending at this point because we've known this for a while. And if you don't look at the statistics on women sexually aggressing against men, you've chosen not to look at them and not to actually be open to what they are saying, right? But it's like, yeah, just keep going. I'm going to try to find this.
Although she doesn't...
Go ahead.
It's all right. Although she doesn't realize it, because, women don't know what they're doing when they do stuff. What Ruskin has done is produce robust justification for our culture returning to archaic attitudes to women, where, just as it is in Islamic countries, they have their opportunities and freedoms dramatically diminished because the alternative is that they turn into mentally ill whores. That's what extremist Islamic regimes think, and unfortunately Ruskin's book rather ratifies that philosophy.
Okay, but the thing is, okay, first of all, extremist Islamic regimes. Okay. Yeah, well, theocracies are terrible for everyone, and men are restricted in them too. I don't know if you've noticed that. Men get stoned to death for having the wrong haircut. Okay? So,
well, we have to make a comparison to, I guess, what the West is turning into. Well, if you live in the UK, it is turning into that, but not because of the men that were native to that country. So, or the people rather, because the biggest supporters of these Islamic Sharia law type of deals are other women, right? You know that they are a big part of that.
Yes.
But
because they get to control other women. Like,
yeah.
That's a huge... Feminism really is about controlling other women. It's about being able to judge women's behavior and say, well, you have to do this, you have to... It's taking away women's choices, ironically. Feminism takes away women's choices. And there's I think there's like a deliciousness that women have. They like to do that. They like to take away women's choices, not just say, hey, this is self-destructive, or maybe you shouldn't be engaging in behavior that's destructive towards yourself or others. No, they like to take away other women's choices. Their choice of, I don't know, what they want to do with their life, whether they want to have children, whether they want to have a career, although that's less now. They want to be able to judge all this shit. They want to stand in judgment of other women and force their choices. And, that's as true in our culture as it is in Islamic cultures. Like, a lot of honor killings are driven by women. Women are the ones who initiate it, who say, I don't like what this other woman is doing. Men will enact them, but they're initiated by women. The women will say that these other women are fundamentally violating some aspect of the social contract. And you see it in currently with even with feminist men and women.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's open season on women who aren't feminist. And in a world where death was a lot more prevalent and life is cheap, I could seriously see feminist women declaring jihad against pygmies, and feminist men, getting out the machetes and doing some head choppings.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just the same freaking dynamic, because when you say a woman is a threat to other women, which is really what honor killings are doing, there's a woman saying this woman is a threat to our virtue, our chastity, our way of being. She's a threat to other women. Suddenly she loses all of her protections as a woman. Notice that? Like, it's just like with feminists. As soon as they say this woman is a threat to other women, suddenly she's open for all kinds of abuse. Incredibly nasty abuse too.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I think we're about to see her hand in a little bit here. I just want to see what her hand is. Okay. So the worst stereotypes about what feminism has done to women are typified in this book, which tellingly Ruskin admits was inspired by binge-watching hideous indoctrinating tool, Sex and the City. Stereotypes about what feminism has done to women. Are there stereotypes if it's true? As Ruskin details, Sex and the City glamorizes casual sex and makes it seem infinitely cool and aspirational. Ruskin's favorite character was the man-eating Samantha. It is of note. I never watched the show, so I don't know. I think that's is that Kim Cattrall's character? I think that's every woman's favorite character is Kim Cattrall's character. She's like the man-eating Samantha. That is to say, a woman who basically lived to only satisfy herself sexually and discarded men casually all the time, and that was some aspirational shit because that was what the writers of that show thought men did. And what they did not realize is that very few men are that way, but of course those are the only men that can see, so that's just how it is. Yes, Kim Cattrall, somebody say. Yeah, I knew it. All right, anyway.
The nature of this entire entitlement narrative. Men get away with it, so women should, even though men never did. Okay.
Yeah, even though very small percentage of men actually do, and most of them don't.
Interested in it, and even smaller percentage get away with it, and aren't.
Yeah, exactly.
For it.
It is of note to consider that Sex and the City was not initially scripted to be about 4 women. It was initially intended to be about 4 gay men. Note its creator is a gay man, but producers decided audiences weren't ready for that yet, so changed the characters to women. I mean, it would have been way less popular if it was about 4 gay men. While I don't think casual sex is psychologically good for anyone, it is nevertheless a biological fact that men are far better equipped to handle it than women. So a television show about 4 wealthy gay men having a lot of sex with strangers and not seeming too negatively affected by it might have been more plausible.
It's not where is there a biological fact that men are far more equipped? Like, where is the study? Like, where is the act? I mean, people say this. Is it true? Like, we are pair bonders. Okay. This is we are insanely pair bonding. And we want to argue this fact. It's not arguable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, biologists, this is not something that is a contentious about our species. And for example, saying that there is a certain percentage of children that aren't the genetic offspring of their father. Well, if you look at another pair bonding species like beavers, only 30% of the offspring are actually the offspring of the father, the social father that's taking care of them. Like, we have actually a very high genetic monogamy. There's genetic monogamy, there's sexual monogamy, and there's social monogamy. And humans have a very high genetic monogamy compared to other pair bonding mammals. And so it doesn't, showing that people cheat doesn't mean we don't pair bond. At that point, if you want to make that the criteria, then there's no pair bonding at all in all species, including birds. Humans pair bond. And when men could divorce more easily than women, divorce was at 1%. 1%. Maybe you can argue that men have a predilection towards sowing their seed and philandering, but then again, you could argue that women have a predilection to cuckoldry. Does that mean we're not pair bonders?
Right.
And does that mean that's not destructive behavior? But anyway, maybe they're right. Maybe they're right that promiscuous men are not damaged in the way that promiscuous women are. Or maybe it's because when men marry, they can't get out of it. Like if a promiscuous woman wants to leave a relationship, a marriage, it's fairly easy. If a promiscuous man does, it's fairly difficult. You see what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
I cast doubt on this. Of course, everyone in the comment will be like, no, Allison, you're wrong.
I think that gay men are uniquely more promiscuous than straight men.
But then again, they're also uniquely more able to keep their relationships intact.
Well, that's true when they have them. Well, that's because, I mean, maybe it's because both, like in a coupling, they're both more okay with, you know, I don't know, sharing dudes and going to orgies or whatever it is gay dudes do. Like they're probably just more casual with it generally, but that's also like why they're perhaps less possessive, and that's why there's probably fewer problems. So I mean, I think that it you know, if it was a gay man in Hollywood writing a story about this, he's probably writing about himself. And that's why it was, you know, and they probably said, well, if you put women in it, it'll make more money, which it probably did. You know, because it was like very, very, very popular with women. Men didn't watch it really. I mean, unless you had to, like your girl made you watch it. But if your girlfriend was watching Sex and the City, you probably shouldn't be dating her. That's a red flag as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, let's see. Instead, devious social engineers had women acting out this wildly unrealistic scenario, knowing starry-eyed young girls would simply copy it, just as Ruskin says she did. This is not a new tactic either. The biography of former Cosmopolitan staff writer Sue Ellen Browder details how, when she worked for the magazine in the 1960s, she would be told to write case studies about glamorous single young women sleeping around with powerful men to advance their careers. None of the case studies she wrote were true, but shadowy individuals she describes as higher-ups told her to write them, as if they were, knowing that impressionable young women would read them and copy them. Okay, yeah, sure, I mean... But they still chose to do it. Like,
yep.
You know, like what? You could have also just said, no, I'm not doing that. Like, what? I don't. What are you getting at? Are you trying to convince me that like the establishment has this like power over women that they can't resist, and they're doing it on purpose?
That women need a guardian in order to make their decisions for them.
Right.
This is what you're doing.
All right. Well, let's keep going. That's how the sexual revolution was mainstreamed. Social engineers putting out fake and distorted accounts, including things like the Kinsey report, that was a feminist thing, while alleging that most of the populace were already having plenty of debauched, adulterous, promiscuous sex, so you might as well get in on the action too. That was all part of the whole like queer theory. Kinsey, he was the guy who created the Kinsey scale, you know, like what was his name? John Money. It was all the same shit, but like that one woman that we looked at earlier, it was like a little while ago, she tried to deny that they were feminists because they were sexologists or something, but they totally were. It was like the same shit. You know, they were celebrated by feminists, written about. I like feminists that I know, that I've known anyway, have told me about the Kinsey scale. Like there was a girl I went to school with, her name was Kinsey, and she was like, I was named after it, and she was a super hardcore feminist. She's probably miserable right now, by the way. Anyway. In fact, they weren't, and it was only after sexual attitudes were resculpted by subversive forces like the Cosmopolitan magazine and the Kinsey report that sexual behaviors radically changed. And what might have looked like exciting liberation in the 1960s, 2 generations later looks like anything but. Kitty Ruskin, for example, looks like what she is, a sad, broken, mentally ill abuse victim. As well as her litany of mental health diagnoses, she admits to having long-term suicidal ideation.
Okay. I just want to get in on that.
Okay.
All right. So she has, okay. First of all, this is not what's happening. People are having less sex. You know, in this current generation.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is like, nobody's really, like, less and less people are having sex. So, you know, that the hookup culture will be starved out because everybody's going to turn into, you know, the mouse utopia, the beautiful ones. They're just going to be living complete isolation with no social contact whatsoever, which I'm sure will be even better than this destructiveness. Okay, let's.
All right, I got a super chat. I'm going to read it really quick. Cool. 70 Czar from Duncan Alexander. He says, I believe gay relationships may have less problems staying together because they don't have to worry about babies. But lesbian relationships also don't result in babies, and they have more problems. But yeah, I take your meaning.
Yeah. Oh, I should probably do the things. Okay, so everybody, we are doing the monthly fundraiser at feedthebadger.com/support. If you enjoy this content, please do help us out. And also, if you would like to send us a message, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Please do. It's a bit quiet today, so that's unusual. So somebody send us $5 in a comment. feedthebadger.com/justthetip.
It's hump day.
Hump
day!
Yeah, hump day usually is.
Guess what day it is? Yeah.
Nobody wants to do anything. They're just in a coma, just like sitting there.
Yeah, hump day.
This is a good article for hump day. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
let's finish this off.
All right, let's keep going. I couldn't help but notice as well that her father gets no mention in the book. Her mother gets a cursory one-liner, which speaks volumes. Daddy issues have become such a cultural cliche for a reason, because so many young women suffer from them. Girls who grow up not feeling loved by their fathers typically crave male validation, and that craving becomes sexualized at puberty, so they often start seeking it out from unsuitable men who will treat them badly, and thus reinforce the sense of worthlessness they already feel. Funny you mentioned that women suffer from not grow up not feeling loved by their fathers. What about girls who are just not allowed to know their father?
Yeah.
Is that I mean, I think that's probably a bigger problem, honestly. And I don't see that in this. Maybe she'll say it later, but I'm not seeing anything about like fathers that are not allowed to know their children, to be around their children, to raise their children, hell, to even know that their children exist, or they only know their father as a paycheck that comes, once a month.
Well, what I'm really interested in is what she thinks the solution is, because she basically said that she can't hold women responsible for their choices.
Yeah, well, let's see.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Ruskin's biographical details beyond the fact that she was sexually assaulted age 10 by another 10-year-old, but I strongly suspect her parents separated when she was young and her relationship with her father subsequently deteriorated. All of this makes the book prime fodder for conservative cultural critics to leap on and use as evidence that we need to dramatically clamp down on liberal social trends such as family breakdown and sexual liberation, because look what happens when we don't. But what shape will the clampdown take? Okay, so are you saying that being critical, like how about the liberal social trends such as family breakdown and sexual liberation? So are you admitting that a liberal social trend is breaking the family? Because that does cause problems. Are you admitting to that? I mean,
yeah,
that's a weird thing to pin on there. I'm gonna pin family breakdown on liberal social trends. Okay, weird flex. But what shape will the clampdown take? Look at The Handmaid's Tale, made into such a prominent cultural talking point for a reason. At the pre-Gilead beginning, when the cool young conservative activists go around the college promoting their ideas, they present them entirely moderately and reasonably. They merely want to stem damaging liberal excesses and reinstall some common sense moderation, they claim. They get a lot of support for this from people damaged by these excesses. Yet, once they're successfully in power, any pretense at moderation goes right out the window. Women all become house prisoners entirely at the mercy of male authority and are stripped of even the most basic rights. Just as they live in certain regimes today, such as Iran, a country the West just happens to be gearing up for a world war with, and which Iran and its allies would certainly win.
Okay. Also, I think we've talked about Iran. Probably overstated the idea of oppression. I know that's a forbidden thing to say.
Yeah.
But people, this is the usual way that they frame the enemy. The enemy harms their women because that justifies, because I don't know, country X, the men of country X harms their women. Because of that, we can drop a nuke and kill them all. That's how it works. And at any time that you say this about a group of people or a country, you are justifying violence against them. So this is the playbook. Like when we're starting to go to war with anyone, we start to emphasize how they don't take care of their women right. Have you noticed that? It's even happened to Russia. Everybody we go to war with, we suddenly start saying, well, they have poor track record on women's rights. Oh, they hate and harm their women. And we're just doing this with Iran, without really looking at it very closely. And what's interesting is that all of the protests, the student protests, you'll notice that men are dying more in the name of women's freedom, which is really interesting if you think about it. But what I wanted to say about The Handmaid's Tale, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, it is the stupidest crap. First of all, what Christian denomination, what group of Christians ever would consider what happened in The Handmaid's Tale anything but adultery that is against God? Okay? Like, that is adultery. Especially in the Catholic Church, you're not even supposed to remarry when you become widowed or become a widower. Like, that is considered to be adultery. Who the hell thinks that they would be behind this? So for some reason, these college Christians going around selling conservative values, and then they morphed into Islamists? Like, does that... And also, the whole biblical thing that The Handmaid's Tale is based on was about the sexual exploitation of a man, Jacob. He was tricked into having sex with his first wife. They got him drunk and then basically sprung her on him. Right? Who knows what happened? Maybe he was too drunk to resist. He was certainly too drunk to realize who he was having sex with. And that's how her father, and no doubt her, because I don't see how she could possibly not have been in the know with all of this, got him to marry the daughter he didn't want. And then subsequently we go through a whole bunch of almost really black humor scenes of sexual exploitation of Jacob. Like he gets extorted for sex because one of his wives says, if you don't have sex with me, I'm going to kill myself. All right. And then he gets sold for a mandrake root. And it's dark. It's some dark crap. It's some pretty black humor. And so all of this sexual exploitation of this dude, and yes, there were the handmaidens involved too. And it wasn't really clear if they said yes or no. It was certainly clear that Jacob was saying no a lot of the time. And Margaret Atwood, being the feminist she is, took a story that was about the sexual exploitation of a man and turned it into The Handmaid's Tale. Are you fucking kidding me? And now we have to contend with this paranoid nonsense influencing the thoughts of generations of women into a hysteria that is going to destroy the very thing that's giving them the freedoms that they are afraid of losing. Right? And furthermore...
Women.
Okay, maybe we should get to the end of this. I just have to point out The Handmaid's Tale is nonsense. And then they take it, and the problem is they take this story and they say that it's saying something about Christians, or it's saying something about biblical times, or it's saying something about society. Okay?
Yeah.
You have taken a story about the sexual exploitation of men, turned it into saying something about how society doesn't care about the sexual exploitation of women. How do you freaking do that? And then you've constructed an entire movement of paranoia around this nonsense.
All right, let's read some more. Okay. Yet once they're successfully in power, any pretense at moderation goes right out the window. Women all become house prisoners, entirely at the mercy of... Already read that part. So taken in this wider context, one can see that Ruskin's book is a strategic clarion call for revolutionary change. The call doesn't come from her. As I say, she's just being used and abused yet again to fulfill a wider agenda she has no concept of. The call comes from high levels... Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, no, just finish the paragraph.
The call comes from high-level social engineers who, when they saw this manuscript, realized this was the perfect vehicle to unequivocally demonstrate just how sordid and debased the West has become, and that we desperately need drastic change. And I'm not saying we don't, but not the changes they have in mind, and which an imminent world war could very well bring in. I wrote more about that here, so she's saying that a world war will do this. Well, probably should have voted for the other guy. You can easily tell that they are using Ruskin as fodder to fulfill an agenda by the way they present her in publicity photos. She is in a bikini. I guess I mean to say she is in a bikini. Here she is in a bikini. Here she is in a very low cut top. Clearly not wearing a bra. Here she is wearing an off the shoulder top that has mostly been cropped out, so she almost looks naked. I'm not going to click on those. But they're saying these are the pictures that we took because we're using these puppet masters are using, you know, this woman to promote this Handmaid's Tale agenda by promoting her book and putting out pictures that she took, but somehow she didn't want to, but she took them anyway, and they're using them because she's hurt and broken. And like, this is so, oh my God, this is so ridiculous. I can't believe.
Oh, but okay, fundamentally, well, tell us what you can't believe.
I'm just saying, like, I can't believe that there are women that will fall for this. Okay. Like, that's it. I'm just saying, I can't believe that women will read this Substack and say, yes, this is happening. And they will claim to not be feminists, by the way, while sending this to me. I mean, I guess I can believe it.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Well, you know what I can't believe? Okay, so she's essentially saying that this woman is being used by an agenda. Like, her choices are not her own. And that's what a lot of people say when women make choices they don't agree with. They're like, oh, this woman she's being puppeted by the patriarchy, puppeted by the reactionary forces that want to bring about the nonsense known as the Handmaid's Tale, right?
Yeah.
Goddamn. You know, it's just really funny because I'm watching women, and you know, we have a really nice thing. We got a good setup here. It's okay. It's pretty good. You know, we're all doing fairly well, or we were, you know. And the women are taking an axe to everything because they're saying, well, there's termites in the wood. We got to get rid of the termites. I'm like, your actions. It's not the termites that's going to destroy everything. It's your actions. Right now, what you're doing is going to destroy everything. But here is another aspect of this, of doing that, of destroying things. She is taking away this woman's individual moral responsibility for her choices. Who is going to make these choices for this woman? If you are saying that she is not responsible for them, she's like, oh, they're presenting her. She's making these choices, and they're going to say that she needs a man to prevent her from doing. And I'm saying that she isn't even making these choices either. Well, who are you going to get to make the choices for her when she's not responsible for them? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She's saying, oh, well, they're going to present this woman making these choices, and it's going to be the justification to take away those choices. Because she can't be responsible for those choices and making those choices right. Oh, by the way, she's not responsible for those choices, and she's not making those. Like, you're all appealing to this idea that women are not responsible for their choices. All of you. And what do you think is going to result from that? Eventually, people are going to be like, well, if women are not responsible for their choices, and women are choosing to do things like destroy themselves and get into situations where they're just, you know, they're mentally ill, and well, we got to make it so that they can't make these choices. Like, you're doing the same thing. This woman is doing the same thing. Do you see that?
Yeah. Like I see it.
This article is projection. Okay.
All right, so I got some super chows.
Yeah.
So I got a super chow from Anonymous, $5 to Brian. Most of Rumble chat was complaining that you don't read out Rumble rants. Do you follow up with those in the same way as super chows? No, there's some bug with the social stream ninja that I use to display the chat, because like it lets me look at all of the different chats at the same time. I can look at what people send through on Discord, YouTube, Twitch, you know, Rumble, etc. And it used to be that if you sent a Rumble rant, it would come up on the feed that I'm looking at. I'll display so you guys can see it. And you can look here. You'll see the little Rumble logo on Be Bad Sad's comment there, which says on the other stream. But for some reason, the paid stuff is not coming through. So I have to like try to remind myself to go look at the actual Rumble live stream. which I did, and it'll show up there in the Rumble live chat, but not in the Social Stream Ninja. So I did get one, a Rumble rant, and I'm gonna look at it in a moment. But thanks for telling me, but that's why. So
then they
go ahead.
Disappear after a certain amount of time too, right?
They do, because there's only so much room on the screen, so they like disappear towards the top as more comments get added. But the Rumble rants have not been popping up, and so I've missed some of those, and I'm sorry about that. But I appreciate that you sent them through. I will try to be actively
honestly,
looking.
Guys,
yeah.
The best way to send us is through Super Chow. Feedthebadger.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to do it through Rumble rant and you want to remind me, just send a regular message through Rumble and say I sent through a Rumble rant, and then I'll go look. Just to make sure, because I check basically when I stop to do the messages, I'll look and see if there's any Rumble rants. So anyway, I got another Super Chow. I always give the Super Chows priority. For 50 Zars from Telemnar, and he says Zar is South African Rand. I always forget that, but it's Zar. RE the Handmaid's it's $50. Oh, and then okay, it's not 50 Zar.
It's okay.
It's $50, and then he says Zar is a South African Rand. Thank you, Telemnar. RE the Handmaid's Tale. The world was borderline post-apocalyptic. Feminist obsession with that novel is ridiculous, and is similar to people worrying about social trends and using the Fallout games as a realistic example of what could happen in the event of a major war.
Oh, but really, no, seriously, we should be we should be worried about corporations forcing us all into medical experiments. Shit. Okay.
Feminists need to grow up. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna finish it and read a different book. Well, they were reading Harry Potter, but now they're reading The Handmaid's Tale. Also, Iranian oppression in the 1980s involved sending masses of boys to horrible deaths during the war they fought against Iraq. Not women, boys. I have a very low opinion of this woman's political knowledge. Widows and widowers can remarry, even since the days of St. Paul. There is usually some kind of standard mourning period, but yes, Christians take monogamy pretty seriously.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Like it's ridiculous, because she's the entire proposal here is that Christians are going to go into, I guess maybe they're Mormons, who knows, but they're not aren't Mormons considered Christian anyway. But
yeah, they're kind of Christian. They're one of those weird,
and they're going to sell
denominations.
People on something that isn't Christian.
Yeah.
Like, are you freaking kidding me? Okay. Let's finish this.
All right. Richard Beer then gives us $5 and says, haven't read The Handmaid's Tale, but have heard a review that mentions that with absolutely no setup or backstory, and the army just marched into Congress, arrested the legislators, and then just took over the government for no apparent reason. Now, that sounds like my theory. Well, the thing that I said, that if men wanted to do it, they would just do it. But the difference is that in Margaret Atwood's brain, men would actually do it, and that's why that happened. But that's not really what would happen. Men would stop other men. Even if some men wanted to do it, they would be stopped by men. But women, I mean, they're kind of at men's mercy, but fortunately, men have a lot of it. So, all right.
I want to say this. Okay, there is that framework that men are at women's, or women are at men's mercy, but I think that it omits how much power women have over men's sense of self, which is just the case in like the species that we're in. I'm just going to say that I agree. Within this framework, they should acknowledge the fact that they exist within men's mercy. But there's also another framework in which men sort of exist within the mercy of women.
Yeah.
Which like what I mean by that is women have control over the perception of whether or not men are socially valuable. And that puts men at women's mercy, the mercy of women's social opinions. And I don't know if I've seen a society where that is not the case. Even in primate, like in chimp society, which is not a good model of us at all. The male leader leads unless the females are dissatisfied with him, and then he ceases to lead. So there is a subtle control, a social control that women have. And I think it does people a disfavor to ignore that fact and not make women responsible for it. And this is why I think it's going to be 100% on women if they collapse this society using their paranoid bullshit based on The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
That's the way it's going to go. It's not going to be because men collectively decided to oppress women. It's going to be because women just beat men psychologically into a state of paralysis, and they were no longer able to continue to give women or produce this society. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If we say, like, we use the framework, well, men, you know, women's exist on the behest of men, then everything becomes men's fault, essentially. I don't think it is. I don't think it's men's fault. I think this is a dynamic. But what's happening now, it is a dynamic between men and women. But when you have two people and you got a car stuck in the mud, right? And one person is pushing and the other person isn't, it's up to the person who isn't pushing to take responsibility, or nothing happens. And that's what's happening now. Men are taking responsibility for this society. Women aren't. And until they do, nothing will happen. Nothing good will happen. That's my opinion. Anyway, let's continue.
All right, I got 2 Rumble rants. I want to read them before I forget. So, NobaFan gave us $2. Thank you. And he says, it's sad that feminists have convinced themselves that oppressing women is the only way to keep them safe. They act like it's in men's nature to oppress women, but never have any adequate explanation. Yeah. Then he gives us $1 and says, feminists always point to just Christians as this vaguely defined evil religious cult. Do they ever define what specific denominations? Do they ever include Catholics by name because of the overlap? No, it doesn't matter. It is ultimately, you can like look at, I mean, there's a case to be made that feminism was made, or it came about in part to destroy Christianity specifically. But you know, I won't go into that here. You should. There are people who have talked about it in that way, because it is essentially opposing everything that Christianity supposedly stands for. And I think this Handmaid's Tale is an example of that, because taking a story that means one thing, turning it into something else, and then blaming the original story for that situation. But anyway, let's continue. So when the media wants to create sympathy and support for sexual abuse victims, they don't present them like this. They present them looking modest and demure and even a little sad, minimal makeup, slight frown, the message being, this is a good girl, she didn't deserve this, she deserves your sympathy, and her perpetrators brought to justice. That they have chosen to represent Rushkin, a woman who has been serially raped and sexually abused since the age of 10 in sexualized, titillating ways, tells us everything we need to know about how they want the public to respond to her. They want people to respond with, as they already are on social media, whore, slut. Of course, it's wholly wrong that people respond that way, but they do, and the media knows it. The PR agencies behind Ruskin's promotional campaign know exactly what they are doing. She, still reeling from years of complex trauma and abuse, does not. She is being ruthlessly used and exploited, and the publishing house behind her book should be shut down for failing in its responsibilities to safeguard a vulnerable adult.
Sounds like you think that women should have a ward to prevent these things from happening.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of
responsible for her actions. Somebody else needs to be responsible for them.
There's a lot of telepathy in this article. There's a lot of mind reading going on. I know what they're doing. I know what they meant. I know what you meant by that. Nevertheless, Ruskin's book is out there and could very well be the start of a significant unseaming of liberal Western attitudes to women's sex and relationships. That it is already getting prominent coverage throughout international Western media, both the New York Post and AustraliaNews.com have covered it, makes this look even more likely. It all feeds into prominent cases where women have been acutely abused to the point of being murdered by becoming intimate with men they didn't know very well. There is the case of, she's going to read, should I read this whole thing? She's going to give me some cases. I don't know the specifics of them. All right, there's the case of Grace Millane, who was choked to death on her 22nd birthday by a man she met on a dating app while traveling to New Zealand. There's Ashley Wadsworth, 19, who was murdered by her internet boyfriend when she flew over from Canada to England to meet him.
And then there's the rash of the OnlyFans thought are women who have been killing their partners. So what?
Put into that context, critics could even make the case that Ruskin was lucky. At least she wasn't killed, though she details how she knew she came close in one encounter. This all gives ample ammunition to make the case that freedom isn't a suitable quantity for women to possess. They can't handle it. They put themselves in danger. Men aren't to be trusted around them. we need more repressive rules to keep in place to keep everyone safe. Sound familiar?
Yeah, yeah, that sounds familiar to everything you've been saying in the previous paragraphs about how she was being taken advantage of. She has to be kept safe because she can't be responsible for her own choices. You see what I'm saying, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
That's like, okay.
Well, she's
very familiar because we've just been subjected to it by you.
Yeah. We are under a full spectrum, lockstep attack to diminish our lives as much as possible, all under the guise of enhancing our safety, and that this book has been published now in a cutthroat publishing industry where 99% of manuscripts are rejected and given international media attention straight away speaks deafening volumes. The question is, will enough people be able to hear what the real message is? Could you just spell it out for me?
Okay, you're not spell it out.
Well, I know what she's saying. She's like, look, I get that, like, feminism and the sexual revolution made a lot of mistakes, but can we have a little bit of feminism? Can we just have a little bit of feminism? Can we have some? How about right up to the 90s when, you know, men were feeling pretty shitty and we still had Sex in the City, but maybe, you know, can we just have a little bit of feminism? Okay, that's what I'm getting from it.
The difference is that people still held women accountable to their choices then. Like, and here's the thing, like, she's essentially saying, this is what she's saying. She's saying that this book is chronicling the self-chosen abuse, basically, of this woman. And this is a book that's going to be used to justify taking away women's rights because they can't make these choices. When they make these choices, they make choices not in their own best interests. However, this woman has appealed to that very same dynamic. Like, who's going to stop this individual from playing into the hands of the diabolical handmaiden's tale tyrants if she can't be responsible for her own choices? Like, that is the logic. Women cannot be given the ability to have choice over their own lives because they destroy them, right? Well, not holding women accountable for their choices is what's destroying them, right? Like, she needs to be held accountable for what she has chosen. And this individual is even in this story where she's saying, well, this idea that women's choices are self-destructive, therefore they can't be allowed to have them. She's appealing to the foundations behind that by saying that this woman cannot be trusted with the choice that she made. She made the wrong choice. She was taken advantage of. Well, who's going to prevent women from being taken advantage of? Who? Who is going to watch the women? You are arguing for exactly the thing you say that you fear. And you're arguing for that thing because of your fear. The thing that's going to take away women's choices is because our society fumbles making them responsible for them.
Yeah.
And she shouldn't be getting outs. People should be telling her, you chose to engage with this culture. If you do not want to be abused, do not engage with this culture. This is true for men and women. And people need to tell her. They need to slap down the argument. Oh, well, but what about equality? If you can't give me the scenario that I've made up in my mind that men have nothing to fear from casual sex, if you can't give that to me, then you're oppressing me. That's her logic. Well, there needs to be people who say, well, first of all, men don't get that deal, and they never have. So you don't have a right to it because you think they did, because they didn't. They didn't have that deal, and they've never had it. So you are not entitled to it based on your faulty ideals of equality. All right, and nobody's saying that. And also, you are responsible for the life that you live. You are. You are responsible for your own safety. You are. You are now an autonomous moral individual. You do not have a male guardian who is responsible. So nobody else is responsible but you. And she's doing that, like, she's appealing to the same, Mira AF is appealing to the same damn dynamic that she points out is going to take away her rights, which is that women can't be held responsible.
Yeah, so, like, even when women are, like, behaving in a sexually liberated way, and they run into problems because, freedom comes with risk.
Yeah.
She still thinks this is oppression of women.
Yeah.
Because there is this specter that, because there's no evidence of any of this. This is all I see where this is going. The patriarchy, she's not saying patriarchy, but the establishment is, making the reaction, my backlash is coming. Mm-hmm. And I don't see any evidence of it. And it really annoys me because there is a very hateful presumption deeply embedded in these women to think that men want to do anything like what they think they're gonna do. It is so deep seated. This is the point of my tweet when I said if men wanted to do this, because to believe that is so hateful. It is so hate-filled to think that men would do that to women just because they're angry with them. Mm-hmm. And it's just, anyway, go ahead.
And the thing is that men so identify, every group of men, this is what I've seen, every group of men on the planet identifies with their particular cultural framework in which they protect and provide for women. Okay? In some cultural frameworks, it's about being able to protect women physically through basically treating your life as expendable in the protection of your community, right? And guys who embrace that particular a particular ideal tend to have some difficult, psychological stuff going on there, because it's a hard thing to maintain, to be willing to just throw your life away in terms of honor, in terms of the chastity and protection of your women. Okay, so but every single man identifies with how their culture protects and provides for women. They identify their self-worth with it. And I know there are guys out there who are saying, well, I don't. Well, that's great, but you are rare. Most men identify their sense of self-worth in terms of protecting and providing for women, and within the cultural context that they've learned. Our cultural context is that men provide freedom and respect women and all this other crap to women. And I from what I've seen of human nature, there will be men who continue to try to make it work, even as women continue to try to tear it down with their fear that men don't care about them, that men hate them, that men want to oppress them. Meanwhile, men are still trying to make everything work as these women are whipping themselves up into a hysterical, tsunami of destruction over their paranoia. And that's what's happening. And that's and this article is buying into it, because it's encouraging the perception that women are not responsible for their actions. It's just so clear to me, so crystal clear to me, that it's not going to be a Handmaid's Tale. It's not going to be a situation. It's going to be a situation where men finally conclude that women cannot be made responsible for their actions, and because they can't, they have become their own dragon, their own destroyers, their own villains. And and that's what's going to happen. And if you really, really want to change that, you don't add to it with more hysteria about men's intentions and motives. You hold women accountable. She made the choice to write this. She's the one getting the dividends. She's the one rolling in the money and attention. She chose it. She's the diabolical mastermind of her own damn life.
Yeah. And she's gonna unmask the CEO of the publisher, and it on Scooby-Doo, and it's gonna be her face underneath. Oh, it was me all along.
Exactly. It was her. She is making the choice to publish this. She is making the choice to engage in this community, or in the way that she did, that put herself at risk. I mean, if you know that you are a kind of person that attracts abusers, maybe you should take the effort to avoid putting yourself in the shark tank. Okay? Take some responsibility. Is that victim blaming? I don't give a fuck. Because if you don't care enough to protect yourself, Why should anyone else? Why should anyone else care more for your protection than you do? Why are you owed that? And it is this attitude that women's choices are less important than women's protection, which is going to take away their choices. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Because
right.
that whole victim blaming nonsense is like, oh, we might make women feel bad. So what? It's their choice. As a result of their choice, they experience something, and they need to know that they're responsible for that.
Okay, I got a super chat. I got a super chow. I'm gonna read it really quick, and then I think I don't know. Do you want to do a little Lauren Southern action?
Yeah, maybe a little Lauren Southern. I think I want to look at that tweet that I sent you. I sent it through Discord.
Yeah, I can put it. I can put
give
it
people
on the
some
screen.
freaking context for all of this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, super chow first. So this one comes from looks like an anonymous person. For $5, the fog began to lift, and enemy troops could be dimly seen about 1.5 miles away on the heights
Great
opposite.
indoors. Great indoors.
Okay. To the lift below, the gunfire was growing louder. Kutuzov stopped, talking with an Austrian general, Prince Andrei, standing slightly behind him, peered at the enemy and turned to an adjutant, wishing to borrow adjutant. Yeah, adjutant, wishing to borrow a field glass from him. Look, said this adjutant, looking not at the distant troops, but down the hill in front of him. It's the French. Another excerpt from War and Peace.
Oh my God, he's trolling us.
Yeah, I knew that. I looked at.
I was trying to figure out why what was the relevance, and there was none.
No.
Oh.
All right.
God. Okay.
Albert Nada gives us a $2 super chat and Canadian and says it must be said ketchup women most affected. Okay. Adjutant. Yeah, adjutant. Okay. Thank you for the
choices. Women.
Thank you for that. Okay, so anyway, let's go back to this. So we got here this post from Peter Wright, gynocentrism.com. The following study surveyed 461 college-age female students regarding sexually aggressive behavior with males. Results below. This is from 1998. Motives for sexual initiation and aggression. Do you want me to look at something specific? Oh, I should share this tab instead.
Yeah, just share the tab. Okay,
I'm sharing.
So we're gonna look up. We're gonna go from the bottom up because at some point it's. So this is the percentage of women responding yes to sexually aggressive behavior. So what they mean by sexually aggressive behavior is basically sexual violence. All right, let's just start with 24 because the top ones are not interesting because they're about consensual stuff. By threatening him with a weapon, 8.9% of women said they threatened a man with a weapon in order to elicit sex. All right. Okay. Are we going to say that rape culture, quote unquote, is some kind of thing that only men need to take responsibility for? All right. 23. This is right out of The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
By threatening self-harm. I believe Rachel threatened to hurt herself in order to get Jacob's consent sexually. Right out of The Handmaid's Tale, 7.4% of women report threatening self-harm in order to elicit sex from men, to rape men. Well, is threatening self-harm rape? It's a gray area. All right. 22, by using physical force. I know people might think that women are incapable of using physical force, but get this. Men don't want to hurt women. It restricts how much they're willing to fight back. And also they know if they do fight back, guess who's the one who's going to get in trouble if she screams? All right, 20% of women use physical force. Now, if all things were equal and men could just use as much physical force back, this wouldn't necessarily be a threat. But we don't exist in that society. We exist in a society where a woman screams and a couple dozen, white knights come out of nowhere and start holding him down so that she can stab him more. All right. 21, by threatening to use physical force. 27% of women, 27.8% of women have threatened to use physical force in order to elicit sexual activity. That means he says no, and she's like, yeah, but really, what if I do something really fucking shitty to you? All right. 20. By taking advantage of compromising position. In other words, he has to because he can't say no because otherwise something bad will happen. Like, I don't know, he'll be discovered cheating, or he might not be able to do a job or fulfill a contract. All right. 19. By using your position of power and authority. 26% of women use their position of power and authority to elicit sex. Holy shit. All right. 18. Well, he was a minor and you were not. 29.3% of women reported forcing sex on a minor. Whoa. By getting him drunk or stoned. 36% of women reported getting a man drunk or stoned in order to force sex on him while he was drunk or stoned. 62% of women have had sex with a man while he was drunk or stoned. Now that is a very gray area.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and here, 15, to gain power or control of partner. 45% of women use sex to gain power or control over partner. This is really interesting because there's another study, and I won't get into like making you show it or anything, that looked at the motivations of female and male rapists. And female rapists by far were motivated by control. They wanted to control their targets. Male rapists weren't. Like, I think it was like 15%. Like, it was like considerably more. I don't remember the exact stats. But isn't that interesting? And then they just dropped that study, of course, and they dropped the whole investigation into this because they didn't find what they wanted. What they wanted to find was that male rapists were motivated by control, and they found that female rapists were. Good grief. Who the frick uses sex? Oh, what am I talking about? Anyway, I just wanted to point all of this out after we've read that long article, which basically amounts to this woman chose to put herself in a situation where bad things happen to her. Therefore, we should take away her rights, or we'll be worried.
Well,
this is some secret
therefore, men will act on that to take away all of women's rights.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's like this thing happened to this woman, and she did this to herself, which means it's going to affect all women everywhere. Especially in the West.
An argument. Is it going to be used as an argument via the Handmaid's Tale to take away women's rights because this particular woman was choosing to put herself in danger out of a misplaced idea that somehow if she can't have casual sex with men, it's unfair because men can have casual sex with women without worrying. Are you fucking did you hear what I just read? Men can have casual sex with women without worrying? Yeah, bullshit. They don't get this. That means women aren't entitled to this based on the ideology around equality. Men don't get it. Like, men don't get a safe world. Men don't get safe sexual partners, like casual sexual partners. Men don't get any of this. But she believes that she's entitled to it because she thinks they do. And she's willing
to. And remember, I was going to mention, this study is what women were willing to admit to. Yeah.
She's willing to put herself in harm's way out of this misplaced idea that she's owed an equality that doesn't exist. Okay? And honestly, and then this woman is saying, as a result of talking about this woman's misadventures, people are going to take away her freedom because she's destroying herself with it. How about we just take away the stupid ideology about how there's some sort of equality that she needs to, that she's out there, you know? Why don't we just tell her, you know, actually men don't get that, so maybe you should take care of yourself because men need to as well. Like, why don't we just get rid of the stupid, why don't we get rid of the false beliefs, right? And also, you are appealing to this idea that this woman is making self-destructive choices yourself. Like, you're engaging in the very dynamic of stripping women of responsibility for their choices, which are these people are appealing to say, well, we got to we got to strip women of responsibility of their choice. Like, what the hell? Okay, I'm gonna shut up. Let's look at.
All right. So I got a couple super chats. So Zoff Mode gave us $2 Canadian. Says just hello, thank you, Zoff Mode. And then Albernator Retro gives us $2 Canadian and says remember 8-ball jacket on the subway. Thank you for the super chat. And let me just look at Rumble. Nothing there. Okay, so let's look at this. So this is all kind of happening around the same time. I think it's pretty interesting. Lauren Southern made this video called "This Is an Absolute Joke," and I think I haven't watched it, but Lindsay was watching it this morning. I think it was this morning.
How long?
Or maybe it was yesterday.
Like it's an hour.
It's not an hour, is it? It's 12 minutes. We don't have to watch the whole thing. We can watch some of it and you know, whatever. But
what does Lindsay say about it?
Well, Lindsay said that Lauren Southern is making this like, so there's been this discourse on Twitter where, you know, women have been supposed right-wing women, I'm putting this in quotes, have expressed concerns that the red pill manosphere bro space is becoming like worryingly toxic, and that like because there was this like people talking about repeal the 19th. And I think most of it is just people being jokey and edgy online. It'll probably never happen because like women would have to literally vote against their own self-interest, which is not going to happen. It's just not a reality. But men are talking about it because it's upsetting some of these women and they're reacting to it. So it's sort of like feeding into it. And some of them have taken it very seriously. Like Sydney Watson has been really upset and Lauren Southern has been really upset. Although Lauren Chen, less so. She actually said, yeah, I don't think women should vote, but I also don't think that most men should vote either. Like, she's against universal suffrage full stop and thinks that the only people who should vote should be people who are legitimately invested in the country. And I am inclined to agree with that, and I'm totally cool with it. But it doesn't change the fact that people like Sydney Watson and Lauren Southern and Tree of Logic are freaking out about this. And so Lauren Southern made a video. I don't know if it's about this, but apparently this is what Lindsay was reacting to. She's like, oh yeah, like we've lost her, you know, it's all ogre.
Have her?
Well, Lauren Southern was like, she was okay in the beginning, but I don't know, man. I think that, like, you know, she's become a mother, and I think that it's just changed her biology or something. I don't know. I don't want to speak to it. All I know is she was okay in the beginning, but this is the thing, okay? What I have found. I've been doing this for 10 years. And I would say that in 10 years, my views on lots of things have changed a lot. I started off on one thing where I was just like, I want to talk about men's issues. And once you start going down that road, you start seeing other things that challenge your worldview. And like everything that you thought you believed in or that you generally agreed with might change. Like you, or at least you're open, it's going to be challenged in some degree, but you come out the other end feeling stronger for it because you're like, well, now I understand why I believe what I believe and why I changed my mind about these other things or whatever. But these things get challenged. And I think that when it comes to women, it's a lot harder for them to do it. Now, Lindsay has also been through a lot of changes, and we've talked about them a lot, right, over the course of the time that we've known each other, which I've known her for like 9 years. We've been married for 7. And, you know, like it's just a part of the process. Like, you can't start talking about something like, oh, you know, I want to end circumcision. Oh, you know, I want to end, you know, I want fathers to have access to their kids. You know, I've seen my friends get destroyed in divorce court. I've seen my friends lose access to their children. Yeah, you start asking
why this stuff is.
Yeah, why does this exactly? And then you start looking deeper because you start learning that, oh, you know, like, what's the truth about feminism? Where does it come from? Like, how pervasive is it? And like, what does it mean to get rid of it? What does it mean to be a liberal? What does it mean to be a conservative? Like, what does it really mean? Because if we can't talk about it, what it really, really means, then we can't actually address anything. So because I've been told all of these falsehoods about almost every word that I use in my day-to-day life does not mean what it's supposed to mean because of all of this shit that we've been, you know, shoved down our throats for before we were born, then it's going to like have like you know, a severe challenging effect on your thought processes and what your beliefs are. And I think that some people like Lauren Chen, this is the thing about Lauren Chen and Sydney Watson I think is really interesting. I've had them both on the show, like years ago. Years ago, before anybody knew who Sydney Watson was, I only knew her because she did a men's march in Australia, and I thought, oh, that's cool, I'll have her on the show, and I had her on, and we talked. And I also had Lauren Chen on when she was still called Roaming Millennial, so this is like way back, right? Years back. And with both of them, I brought up the it was feminism necessary in the Middle East or at any point in history argument. I brought it up to both of them, and they both were like, oh, no, I think that women are totally oppressed in this part of the world or in history, right? At that time, I was challenging that idea because that's one of those things that like I was supposed to agree with, even if I was, a critic of feminism, right? So at that time, I was starting to challenge that belief in myself. And so I was proposing it to other people to see what they thought. And at that time, that's what they thought. But here's the interesting thing. As time has moved on, I'm pretty sure Lauren Chen has moved away from that idea, and she's become like even more severely like against feminism in many ways. Although not quite at the point where I'm at, but that's okay. And Sydney Watson has stayed the same. Because that's why they are on opposite sides of this particular issue where, Lauren Chen is like, well, even if there are like, anonymous people on Twitter being lippy with me, I'm not going to make that like an excuse to change all of my political opinions. Whereas Sydney Watson is like, well, we're just going to vote for the end of our country because I don't like the way you're talking to me. And that's literally what's happening on Twitter, is that there are women, not all of them probably, but a lot of them who are like, we were on the right, but you guys are being mean, and now we're going to vote for Joe Biden, and we're going to let the borders just gush with men, and they're just going to come in here and change the demographics. Fuck it, we're just going to collapse the country. Take that, men. And it's like,
is it really
well, I mean, I'm just saying, like, this is literally, you're making the argument for repeal the 19th as you're trying to make this state, like you're explaining to me why this has to happen, and again, that's why I said, ladies, if men wanted to, this would be done. But you don't see that. It's like, it's almost like it's, oh, by the way, it's just a big shit test, right? It's just a shit test, guys. Just like call them on their shit test, and I promise you they'll change their ways, but they're not, because they think that, like, they literally believe that they have this power that they also believe they don't have to like manipulate us. So
all right, let me just sorry, I might have screwed up with your momentum there.
No, I'm just explaining that I'm saying that women,
Joe Biden, so
these women, yeah, just to spite you,
all the men that I say are dangerous. Like, I mean, the framework you said is, are the men over there oppressing women? I'm going to vote for Joe Biden because the men who uphold...
Well, because the men over here are being mean to us on Twitter.
Are being mean to
That's
us on
why.
Twitter and
Yeah.
import the men who I say oppress women. Okay, that's an interesting self-own there.
Well, I know, but I mean, this is like woman logic. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, it literally, like, I jokingly said to Lindsay today, I think we were talking about this, and I was like, we are living through like 4 years of a woman moment. It's a woman moment that goes for 4 years. That's what we're going through right now. That's why all of this is chaotic, because men are just like, fuck, whatever. Right?
You're importing in the people who you say oppress women in order to stick it to the men who've constructed the society in which you are presumably less oppressed. Okay, yeah, that's an interesting logic there, but also like, you know what? No, go ahead, Brian. I can hear you sighing.
No, I just want to play the video.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I mean, this, we've gone for what, 2 hours already? I don't know if we want to go much longer, but
yeah, let's do this.
All right.
6 years ago, I posted this video about Ali Dawah.
Will you shake my hand? No. No, you won't shake my hand.
Even basic cultural greeting standards within the West are not permissible within Islam, which at the very least indicates there's some level of discussion to be had about the compatibility of this religion and European culture. Certainly, as more and more Muslims
wait. Okay, so because men are pissing you off on Twitter, you're going to import more Muslims.
Well, Lauren Southern is not the one that threatened to vote in Joe Biden, but
Well,
she is saying that like, you know, these right-wing manosphere guys, she's calling them right-wing, but
Oh, I think I know where this is going. So she's said that they want to bring, or they are starting to bring in Islam.
Well, that's what's happened in Europe and the UK. It's absolutely what's happening. And that's the thing too, is that like in Europe and the UK, like you know, this is where some other people who are trying to warn me about the Handmaid's Tale in America, like, it's like, well, are you looking at what's happening in your own country? Like, if you guys don't fix the situation between men and women right now, like, they're like mad that Andrew Tate made a video where he said people need to make more white babies, and they were like, the women were just like, oh, aghast, like, oh my god, what do you mean? It's like, no, I think what he's saying is, you can call it edgy, whatever, what he's saying is that while men and women in Western countries, in first world Western countries, are still divided by feminism, by all these other things that are basically telling women that men like are not measuring up, calling them incels, shaming them constantly, not wanting to, like, putting off marriage, putting off family, putting off children, focusing on career, being a boss bitch, you know, fucking twinkle twinkle, like all this other stuff, okay? Meanwhile, in Islam, they are having babies like crazy because they got their shit together. And this is the thing that he's saying, like, they're making babies. Now, you might have criticism of their culture, but their culture is growing. Their culture is winning. They've said, like, I remember saying this years ago when there was, like, I think the migrant crisis was starting in, like, France. There was a guy who said that it was either a man or a woman, I can't remember. We will conquer the West through the womb and not the sword. And I said they're gonna make lots of babies. And they are doing that, and they're forming families, and they're staying together. So your critique of their culture is meaningless because they're winning. And this is what people like Lauren Southern are missing. So after a while, you're just gonna, you know what? All of this shit that you're worried about, guess what? You better start learning Aramaic, and you better figure out where the fuck Mecca is, because you're gonna be praying there five times a day, or else you don't have a choice. Like, you have to get your shit together. So all of this shit about the red pill bros on Twitter, bullshit. You do not have your priorities straight, ladies. I'm sorry, it's so stupid. And then, like, to come over here and criticize us because there are people here like, you know what? We should probably get the Christians together and make that, like, you know, a primary focus, because in fact, our borders are also being invaded by people not just from South America, but also from Africa and China. And that's fucked up. So, you know, maybe we should make this a Christian oh, that sounds like the Handmaid's Tale. Oh, once again, Christianity's a problem. Islam, well, it's just, but the food though, I want their falafels.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. There's a lot of fuck in this, and I'm going to look at it. First of all, yes, you're right. Islam is going to win, or the Amish, I don't know. And it's going to be because,
well, the Amish are going to be, they have guns, so it's going to be, but I mean, in America, in Europe, in the UK, they can't defend themselves. They're fucked. Like, they're fucked if they don't start making babies. And there's nothing racist about that.
Well, I mean, having somebody who inherit their particular viewpoints on the world would be the way to look at that. But all right, you're right. Like, it does come down to that. We are breeding colonies, and when a colony ceases to breed, it has no future. It's going into collapse. Well,
the ones that do breed are going to win.
Well, but here's the thing: like, Islamic women are invested in their culture. Like, they're invested in it. They want it to continue, right? And they're willing, and they apparently either love or respect the men of their culture. So they're willing to get into relationships with them, and it is consensual for the most part. Like, maybe not when in these strange outlying tribal places, and you could say the same about weird Mormon communities too. You can always find weird communities, outliers, but they are willing to get in relationships with their men. They're willing to have children with them and raise them. You know, they're willing to do this. And women in the West are less and less willing to do this, despite the fact that the men of our society are the ones who are maintaining and building the society that has the most freedom for women, or at least according to their perception of freedom, right?
Yeah.
So the more freedom men give women, the less the women are interested in investing in the community, in the culture that gives them that freedom. So it's like, well, do you see that? Like, if you can't get women to love the men who are giving them this culture, are building it for them, then you're not going to have a future. You're right. It's just that they are winning. They have constructed a culture in which people are forming families. And our culture that doesn't have, that doesn't, and you know, people out there are forming, yes, there still are, but the projections are like, the low end is that 45% of women will be single, with no children by 2030, I think it is. And that's the low. I think it's probably much higher is the likelihood. And that's without children. Now, if you add in the single mothers, that's even higher. This is not a system that has a future. And it's because women apparently hate the men who've constructed the society of the greatest amount of privilege and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
They hate them. And yeah, that's just not a tenable.
Well, again, I don't think it's going to look like oppression in the, second wave or whatever conservative view that people like, Sidney Watson believe, but I'm saying that your concern seems to be living under a theocratic authority, and you seem to think that it's the Christians that are going to do it, but it's not. It's not them. It's the other guys.
Well, I think Southern is agreeing with that.
Yeah, but I think, well, that's the thing. I'm not sure what her argument is. Well, Lindsay gave me a timestamp. She sent it through the chat. Let me see if I can find her message. She said, go to 920 to get her main argument. Run through those clips. So I guess I'll start from here and see.
Humanly possible. I was on the forefront of criticizing that absurdity, and it was absurdity. But really, in response to this, do you have to go and become barbarians? Listen, the left imported all of this. I don't want to hear a bo peep from them about the sexism of young British boys. They did this. And now you've got all of these new influencers on the right that say I've changed. I've become some sort of feminazi now, that I shouldn't be critiquing any of this, that I shouldn't even be online at all, commenting on politics whatsoever.
What is it they're critiquing? We sort of missed that part.
Critiquing, yeah, I guess I could go back. I don't know.
Yeah, there's not too far because I don't want to belabor this, but
all right, let's see what this is.
Anymore, I'm so tired.
Catturd just says, make me a sandwich in response to her.
Yeah, well,
this is the high IQ right wing where the strangest thing is.
Oh, I see. So the woman is crying on TikTok, and then this guy is like, haha. And now, okay. All right. I guess there's just not enough empathy.
Let's just play.
You literally have tweets like this from big right-wing accounts, Catturd, where you have a woman saying, hey, the current market that we're living in, the 9 to 5, I don't think it's really, designed for happiness or fulfillment.
Why is it that I have to work 40 hours a week just so I can have a place to live? I don't know what to do about it anymore, I'm so tired.
Catturd just says, make me a sandwich in response to her.
Okay. Yeah, well, 40 hours a week. That's
well. Let me ask you this, because here's the thing. Lauren Southern did cover this in the past. I don't know this woman's situation. All I know is she says she works really hard and she's crying and sad. Now, call me cruel, but I don't have a lot of... See, the thing is, I have it tough too. I'm not crying on TikTok. This is not a uniquely feminine thing. This is not a uniquely female problem. I would challenge this woman with a couple of questions. Number one, how are you living for the 40-hour work week that you spend all your money on just like getting by? What does your apartment look like? How much do you spend on that? Are you living within your means? You know why I say that? Because there are people who live in the third world right now that are happy, even though they have less. Like, you couldn't have less than you couldn't have less than they have. And I know that she lives in America and she's doing a lot better. Just based on that. She's on TikTok, clearly has a cell phone. I'm sorry, but like, this is the thing. Like, this woman is accustomed to a certain lifestyle. And Lauren Southern isn't even willing to challenge that by saying, well, wait a minute. If you're really poor and barely getting by, number one, why are you doing it alone? Like, why are you doing this by yourself? Why did you buy into the girl boss thing and then try to do that? If that's the case, I don't know. Where is there a man helping you out? If there is a man helping you out, is he doing enough? Do you think that he should be doing more? Are you making more than he is? Because on average, women are making a little bit more than men right now. Does that mean you can't find anybody that's suitable to like share in? Like, who's your partner in crime? Like, what is going on? Like, there's too many questions that are not answered, but I'm just supposed to feel bad because Cat Turd made a spicy comment about this woman that's crying when I don't know if she has any control over her situation. She probably does. I'm telling you, I know homeless people who don't complain this much.
Okay, 40 hours a week. She doesn't have time, energy, or cash to enjoy it. Well, does she have a huge commute?
Like, well, I'm saying, what are your living conditions? Like,
well, 40 hours a week, that's like, everybody expects to work that.
Yeah, that's a normal 9 to 5.
Self-employed. If you're self-employed,
yeah,
you're probably working considerably more because you can't get away from it, right? But everybody expects to work that, lady. Like, what you're complaining about is basically the bill of goods that everyone gets. You know, and if you didn't want that, Cat Turd has a point. Like, a stay-at-home wife in the 50s worked like 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
Realistically, I mean, everything else she could probably fill it with interesting like hobbies and stuff, and they did. But for the most part, it's like the domestic job went from a 12-hour a day, 6-day-a-week job. And that was actually the better job because the man would probably be working 60 to 80 hours a week. You know, like 16 hours, like 12, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's and a much more physically challenging. So what happened is that we reduced that. All of these labor-saving devices reduced that from 12 hours a day to 3. You know, you could be 5 days a week. You could be working 15 hours a day, supposedly as a homemaker. Except that choice is off the table because everybody, you know, women wanted to work, and I understand that.
No, yeah, but like if a woman wanted to look, if a woman wanted to like not like if a woman wanted to stay in or stay home and be a homemaker, and a man was to work, they can still do that today. They would just have to be able, but they would have to be willing to live within their means. And that's the thing. Like, there is no excuse. I'm sorry. Like, you may have to adjust your expectations. And I think that, I don't know this woman's situation, but Lauren Southern doesn't know it either. So we both have to make assumptions. And I'm going to assume that just based on, like, what I'm looking at, I'll just go back to the video briefly. I mean, she lives indoors. She's probably got heating. She's clearly on a phone or a computer recording this. There's like a poster on her wall. She's probably doing okay, but like, how responsible is she with her money? Does she have credit card debt? Does she have student loan debt? Like, and I'm not saying that any of this is fair, but like, you know, like, look, I don't want to just complain about problems. I want to fix them. It's not about the nail. It is about the nail.
All right, like, let's move on because
all right, well, I got a super chow. I want to read the super chow and then move on from there. So super chow from Telemnar for 10. He says Arabic, not Aramaic. Nobody but a handful of Orthodox Christians speaks Aramaic. I agree with everything else in your crazy rants, though. Dark times ahead. Thank you. Don't spurg out on me.
I actually had a bit of a white pill. You know what I think is actually going to happen? I think that it's turning out that this financial system is pretty damn robust. And I talked a lot about how it's going to be the pain that gets them over the chasm. You know what I think the pain is actually going to be? It's going to be boredom. People are bored. They are bored. This is everything that we're doing is boredom. I think it's a result of boredom, and it's only getting worse because people can't even, like, our storytellers aren't even doing their job anymore. So it just we're just descend into this pit of boredom. So what we really need to do is we need to capture entertainment and turn it to our own ends, and then we can construct the Handmaiden's Tale.
All right, I got another super chow.
Capture the entertainment. All right, go ahead.
I'm gonna read another super chow. Xeranx gives us 5 and says, "There's a guy on X called Sovereign Bra who called Lauren's video obfuscating, but he aligns Red Pill with the elites wanting men to not know about Southern and Midwest Christian women. It's the same issue with trads or supposed trads going after MGTOW because they don't like them. Sovereign Bra, Lauren Southern, Natty, just about all of them are blinded by the present they see before them and completely unconcerned about the solutions they could attempt. As I've suggested more than once, get government out of marriage, family, and children. It bothers me so much that most of the rhetoric is instead about how to keep the most government we can. That gives me a headache." Yeah, you know who's talked about that is Rachel Wilson. She's talked about marriage being solely a church thing and getting the government out of it and making it, I forgot how she said it, but like, you know, essentially a specific kind of union. And I'm inclined to agree, but okay, let me go back to the what Lauren said. I think we got the sense of what we're talking about.
This is the high IQ right wing we're promoting right now.
His name is Cat Turd.
Nobody's promoting that. I mean, so if somebody tweets a lot and they get a lot of like engagement and you give it to them, I guess that's promoting. But like, I post on Twitter. Why don't you retweet me, Lauren Southern? My comments are not that like edgy. Oh, I guess I made that one. but like otherwise, no.
We're supposed to be better than this.
Okay, your comment. Do you want it both ways? Because it's factually true. If you believe that men are the alpha and omega of society, then the situation of women is entirely on the behest of men. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say that men are ultimately responsible for oppression and say that everywhere that feminism isn't, men oppress women. It's not like feminism has this magical army, you know, like they've conquered men through their military might. That's bullshit. Feminism at best just asked, and then men were like, okay.
I mean, what's Cat Turd supposed to do? Is he supposed to solve her problems with a tweet? Like, is he supposed to tell? Yeah, like what?
A man called a cat turd is supposed to be nice. Let me finish. But the thing is that if you accept the premise of male oppression, then the situation of women is entirely at the forbearance of men. Period. And you cannot get away from that.
Mm-hmm.
That is the implication. I don't agree with it, but that's the implication of that framework. So everybody who's pissed off at your tweet, get pissed off at the framework, not the messenger. Okay, let's keep going.
All right, I got a super chat from Albernator Retro for $2 Canadian. He says, "Cruel, cruel, cruel. Catch up women most affected." All right, let's play more of this.
When I was growing up, right-wing ideals used to be pretty simple: family, faith, church, chivalry, respect, community. We used to lambast societies where women couldn't vote or get educated, and now these influencers see that shit and think, yes, perfect. Burqas for everyone, multiple wives, all of them illiterate. I don't want to be able to have a conversation with
Let me tell you something,
woman.
Lauren. Okay, this is what has happened, right? You have alienated your men. You do not find them attractive. You make women have like the predominant message, and you cannot get away from this. This is the predominant message that Western women give Western men: that they are undesirable, that they are hateful, that they are oppressive, that they're abusive, that they don't make enough, that they're bad in bed, that they're poor mates, that they steal from them, that they're thieves, and that everything that a woman does for a man is something onerous, that she shouldn't have to, and that relationships are zero-sum games in which you're trying to smash and grab as quick as you can. This is the overwhelming message. Like, I can tell you that this is the overwhelming message because think about how many times women have said, no, men are actually valuable. We should feel grateful for them. We should recognize the things that they have contributed to society. You almost never hear a message like that, right? women have constructed the alienation that young Western men feel. And now you're importing a culture that to some degree has some amount of respect for men. I mean, I would argue it's illusionary and it's minimal at the end of the day, because if one man wins 2 wives, then another man goes without. So you got some of the same problems. But it's not like they're not seeing polygamy will play out in their own lives, which with the top 5% of men having however many baby mamas. Okay? I mean, basically we've become inured to all of the things we used to say were immoral about, let's call it Islam, right? Now we have to be okay with women, with 10 women and 1 man. Now we have to be okay with single mothers. Now we have to be okay with this excessive violence and all this other shit. And then you have this group of men, of young men who are completely disenfranchised from this society. They're not told that they're a benefit to that society. And they have this other group, this other cultural group coming in that actually at least still gives men a place. What do you think's going to happen, friend? What do you think's going to happen? Yeah, you constructed this. Just like the media constructed Andrew Tate, you guys constructed this. And you continue to do it.
Yep. And you perpetuate it because you keep on talking about guys like Andrew Tate and Fresh and Fit and keep them relevant. And then you make them into what we've been doing for 10 years. So you participate in it because it boosts your views and your numbers. Instead of like actually wanting to address the issue by saying, you know, I know some people that talk about this stuff for a long time and they're, you know, they don't do any of this other shit.
Okay, yeah, that's the thing. Like, you could just address men's issues. You could actually tell these young men, yes, you're critically important to society. Yes, society did expect you to sacrifice in the past. Yes, you should get services when you need them. You should have a place to pick yourself back up that isn't trying to kick you down again constantly. You know, you should feel like you're cared about. You should feel like you're valued. You could do this, you know? You could approach the situation the way we do and actually correct the alienation that men feel in their own culture. But instead, apparently we're complaining about cat turds mean tweet. Very helpful. Let's go going.
Love it. And the reason our society is better, and why myself and so many others defended the West back in the day, is because everyone was educated, men and women. Women literally educate our children. We get dumber men when women aren't educated. And this is the reason everyone wants to come to our society.
Actually, education has been a fucking disaster, especially for men.
And also,
like, what are you even talking about?
Traditional families.
And yes, women are doing the educating, and they're educating men terribly.
Traditional families, traditional Muslim communities also have an emphasis on education. In fact, when I was doing some of the undergraduate work in computer science, I didn't take an undergraduate in computer science, but I was in the area. All of the women who were in computer science were Muslim, Indian, or East Asian, except for like maybe a handful, right? These cultures put a priority on women's education because they want their daughters to get good jobs, which is why the gender paradox exists. For whatever reason, in cultures that just want to indulge whatever their girls want, they don't think that their girls have responsibilities to their families. Those girls don't take the hard sciences. Like, literally, you say that our culture is a culture of education, but these cultures that you deride, they're getting more educated, and they're more educated in things that matter. Right? Okay, so yeah, I really don't think you can blow that smoke up our ass anymore.
Because it is more intelligent, more literate. People are more capable of engaging and building community. Women and men who are higher educated, way less likely to divorce, way less likely. And that family unit, so integral. And yet we want to go back in time instead, go back to the Stone Age, to the values of the people who are literally escaping those countries to come here because it's created such shit cultures. And listen, I get it. Feminists back in 2015, 2016, that shit. Gone. They were doing stuff like this.
Were? Oh, I see. We're not doing the feminism thing anymore. That's so 2016, right, guys? So out of fashion. We're doing some different shit that has absolutely nothing to do with the relationship between men and women now.
Why is it that young men are completely alienated from Western society? Why is it that they're turning to Islam for values? Like, why would they be doing that? It must just be because nothing to do with women telling men that they're oppressing them in Western societies, and basically, no, it has nothing to do with women challenging the very nature of anything that men benefit Western society at all, that men make any sacrifice, that men are worth anything in the West. Like it can't have anything to do with Western women presenting this idea that Western men are worthless. That can't have anything to do with why Western men feel alienated. Like feminism, oh no, we can't possibly be the problem. Nope. They just, I don't know, I guess red pill bros just woke up one day and said, I just feel like being a dick.
Yeah.
Okay.
How does it feel to be the same sex as Donald?
Do you ever get tired of trying to be manly all the time?
I love the mansplaining. I'm enjoying it.
You're loving what?
The mansplaining that's going on.
There I was thinking it was just me that had a problem, but it turns out it's the air conditioning that's sexist.
I know. So many women in our office have the exact same problem.
Manspreading is when a man spreads his physical body to take up as much space as humanly possible.
I was on the forefront of criticizing that.
No, you weren't.
I like how these are like the issues that we thought were like the top
Yeah,
things.
not okay, I gotta get in on this because this really pisses me off. Yeah, those were the top issues, Lauren. Not the fact that feminists are blocking men's services when they experience domestic violence and rape. Those are the main issues. Not the fact that feminists blocked initiatives for shared custody. I guess she's not good before that. Shared custody between men and women. Feminists did that. They stopped a shared custody initiative that was headed by women. We talked to the woman who headed that. We talked to the man who is single-handedly bringing services to men to Canada and is being stonewalled by feminist bureaucrats. All right? I've talked to men who have tried to put on just group help events for men who experience sexual abuse who were shut down by feminists. I didn't talk to, but I think my husband actually talked to Earl Silverman, who had like the only shelter for men, and it was shut. Well, he couldn't continue to pay for it because he was stonewalled, just like Justin Trottier is being right now, and he had to shut his doors down, and it killed him, and then he killed himself. Like this, there is so much more than air conditioning is sexist. Now that's the fun stuff that brings the eyeballs, but eventually you have to bring up the hard stuff, which is that society doesn't seem to give a crap about when they could use a hand, right? And furthermore, all this other stuff, yeah, not only does our society not give a crap about men when they could use a hand, it's actively alienating them with all of this overt feminist stuff, right? It's saying that they're worthless. They're not just worthless, they're actively harmful to women in society. Right? This is not stopped.
Yeah.
Just because you've decided it's no longer convenient to talk about it.
Yeah, this is not like a trend. Like, this is not something that is in and out of fashion. Whatever. Okay, so I got a Rumble rant I should read. Thank you, Nova Fan, for telling me. Lauren Southern, recent feminism may have been cringe, but second wave, man-hating, and first wave firebombing feminists have entered the chat. Her history classes have all failed her, LMAO. Well, there's like this thing where it's like, well, I'm not talking about that anymore, and now I'm especially not talking about it because, like, the red pill bros or whatever have taken over, like, the discourse. But they haven't taken over the discourse. Like, we've been here steadily creating content every fucking day for 10 years. And, like, there are plenty of other people still doing the work. Janice Fiamango is still out there doing the work. Paul Elam just announced he's going to be starting a podcast. All these people that you could be talking about, but you see, because their channels are small, they don't get your attention. So then you don't give them attention. Therefore, you get to decide what gets the attention. And we've already said that, you know, this is only going to get worse if we don't address it. We've been saying it for years. And now, you know, that the Fresh and Fits and the Andrew Tates are the ones getting all the eyeballs on them.
That's the worst.
Those are the
that we're saying.
That's the worst that it is. And you're basically like, well, we need to stop this right now. And it's like, well, sure, but like, how about, I don't know, maybe you don't go after the people who are like the top, especially when you know us. You slept on Karen's couch. You slept on Karen's couch when you were at that march that you showed a clip from. So you know us, right? I mean, and now you're worried because a few guys, I'm sorry, but there's going to be more angry young men and they're going to be venting on the internet. And like, that's, you should be, yeah, exactly. Why wouldn't they? I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying, like,
here's the thing. Why wouldn't they? We live in a society which will not address their issues when they have needs and also marginalizes them as worthless. Like,
yes.
Why wouldn't they be angry? And you're just going to keep doing it, and you're going to keep ignoring it, and you're going to keep looking at the symptoms of it and saying, oh, well, how dare? Well,
yeah.
Oh, God, it defeats me. Okay, let's keep going.
All right. Well, I got another super chat. I already read that one, right? Lauren Sun is a new Tommy Lauren for $2 Canadian. Actually, Tommy Lauren's not as bad because I knew what she was about from the get-go. Richard Bier gives us 5 and says, wouldn't you rather be responding to either Manifestel or Hannah Cox at this point? Well, I mean, I think it's important to respond to this. So Manifestel just hates men. And Hannah Cox is just like a different brand of chameleon. All right, anyway, let's go. Let's continue.
That absurdity. And it was absurdity. But really, in response to this, do you have to go and become barbarians? Listen, the left imported all of this. I don't want to hear a bo peep from them about the sexism of young British boys. They did this. And now you've got all of these new influencers on the right that say I've changed.
That's okay. I just want to, no. I want to address this. The left didn't do this to import this, and the right is not the response to this. Women did this. Men are responding to it. I'm tired of saying left and right. We're looking at women's behavior unchecked and men just trying to like cope with it. That's what it is. Lauren Southern is proving it right now with her reaction. She is demonstrating it. This is not a left and right thing. This is a woman thing and a man thing. And you have to look at it for what it is, because we have to keep pretending that there are these fucking factions when it's not that, okay? It's basically a society where almost everybody is either feminist to some degree or a little gynocentric, and the women especially so, and the men are just like, what the fuck is going on? Meanwhile, there are other men who are like, we've taken care of this in our country. We're gonna come over to your country and change it. That's what it is, okay? It's not left and right. Stop. Stop with this both sides bullshit. I'm exhausted from it. It is not true.
Whew.
It's not though. This is like we're talking in circles for nothing.
Okay,
and then Lauren Southern is like, I'm floating above all of it. That's the bullshit part. Oh, look at this. The team A is terrible. Team B is just as bad, but not me. I'm floating above all of it. No, you're not. You're a woman too, and you're participating in it. God, just trying to avoid accountability. You did this. You did this. Like, every person that you chose to give attention to and chose to ignore fed into this. So whoever you chose to talk about, whatever topics you chose to talk about, like whatever the risks were to your career, you chose that. Okay? So you did participate.
Yes, and I don't want to watch this anymore. I don't think there's anything worth watching about this further. But I just want to point out that she is hand-waving. Like, she wasn't the target of this. Men were. Men were the target of all of this. And she's saying, well, this was terrible. Like, look at all this crap that women did. Oh, well, but, you shouldn't become barbarians in response. Yeah, you know what? you should thank the ones that actually are talking. Because
Yeah.
there's a much larger undertow of men who are simply just fading away. They just, and even larger men who are simply going completely into a comatose state. Just quit it. Just quit this video. We're not responding any further.
I want to know if there's like anything.
But the thing is that she was not the target. She doesn't have the right to say, "Oh, this is irrelevant now." Boys are still being targeted by this. Like, they're still being abused, and our society doesn't give a crap about the fact that they are being abused by these narratives.
Mm-hmm.
They're being abused to a state of like trauma. And then she comes along and she says, yeah, that's not relevant. It is still relevant. Like, how dare you say, well, yeah, sure, you guys were abused, but could you just keep it down? Like, yeah. Like, how dare you? How dare you say this? Okay,
Yep.
you know what?
There's another thing I wanted to mention. Scott Adams said, I can't find his tweet, but he did say something a while back where on Twitter where he said women voted for open borders policies as a mating strategy for progressive women to get closer to reproductive success. And at first I thought, man, that's kind of ridiculous. Now I think I get it. I think that's right. I think that women overwhelmingly supported it because they wanted to increase the pool of men that they could choose to reproduce with. And now that it's happening, they don't want to admit it. And I don't know if Lawrence Southern's one of those people, but I think that it is entirely possible, since it is overwhelmingly women that voted this way and continue to vote this way. And they're okay with voting this country into oblivion just to spite the men who live here.
She doesn't care. She doesn't care about the fact that this pain is continuing. It hasn't stopped. Not only does
because Cat Turd said something mean on Twitter.
Not only does this society not care about men when they're sexually assaulted, not care about men when they experience domestic violence, not care about men when they're suicidal, when they're losing their children, all of these basic problems and issues that we've talked about for years. Society is also constantly telling men that they're worthless, or worse than worthless, that they're oppressive. And she doesn't care at all about it.
Mm-hmm.
What the problem is that Cat Turd made a snide tweet, or that any of these red pill bros do anything that they do. Like, honestly, think about it. The society is pathologically incapable of even recognizing that what men are doing for it. You know, and you see women continuing to reframe things only in terms of their own issues. Like, a man lies dead in the street and they're complaining about their pumps getting blood on them. Like, that's what I see. I mean, she's doing it right here. Everything is just reframed in terms of her own emotions. Like, you would sacrifice all of the men in your society because you feel bad about something, right? You're doing it right now. You are you are minimizing the harms being done to boys and men by these narratives. You're saying, oh, it was bad back then because I thought it was ridiculous, but it's not serving me now to say that it's bad. Now I want you guys to shut up or do whatever. Like, everything comes back to your emotions. I'm pretty sure Cat Turd isn't standing behind you with a gun. Like, everything comes back to how you feel. And men are sacrificed for that. And men see that. And they say, repeal the 19th. Because the voting majority does not give a crap about them. And continually, like, women don't give a crap, don't give a crap about men, that if a woman does, they attempt to destroy her socially. Like, this is... I am feeling something very negative, and I don't want to feel it anymore, so I am saying that you can continue this video, Brian.
No, I'm done.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything else.
I don't want to...
We can quit.
Get rid of the image, please.
Okay.
Just take it away. I don't want to look at it. We need something positive. So we need to look at something positive.
Are you gonna send me something?
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
have anything handy.
I'm gonna send you something. I don't know. It's a little thing. I think it ties into what I was saying. I mean, every society has its mythology of why and when to sacrifice men. This one, I guess, has just perfected it. Here, I've sent you a link. You can take a look. We can read that. We'll just end it. It's a little sad, but also beautiful. So that's probably a good place to end it. This is what men really are. Do you have the picture?
Yeah, 1932, Marine Sergeant Frank Praetor nurses his newly adopted kitten named Miss Hap. Oh, I get it. With a medicine dropper during the Korean War. Explaining her name, he said that he named her Miss Hap because she was born at the wrong place at the wrong time. Miss Hap survived the war and was adopted by another Marine who brought her to the U.S. upon his return.
Yeah. This is the sex. This is the gender that they're oppressing. That's right. They oppress women. They're the worst.
Yeah.
Our society doesn't deserve its men. Lauren Southern doesn't deserve this society's men. The predominant activity that men are doing in our society is to continue to maintain it. Despite the fact that all of its institutions, all of its myth-making institutions are absolutely infected by this narrative that men oppress women, that's their primary contribution to society. When in fact, their primary contribution is to build a society in which a woman can complain about working 40 hours a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's good. I just want to remind everyone we are doing our monthly fundraiser. We do exist because you have helped us to exist this long. So thank you to everybody throughout the years who've supported us. I know it can be sometimes frustrating because this fight seems like it's never ending, but we know what we know, and that can't change. And until the rest of our society realizes that it's got to contend with this message that men oppress women, that's the only way forward. We have to get rid of it. We have to stop harming our men with it. Right? We have to be responsible, and we have to live up. Society itself has to be worthy of its men. And we're not.
Mm-hmm.
We are not. Okay? Until the society faces this message and gets rid of it, we're going to be dealing with the fallout, and the fallout's going to be a hell of a lot worse than a snide tweet by Cat Turd on Twitter or Andrew Tate's fans. Okay? And it's not even going to come from men wanting to harm women or wanting to oppress women. It's going to come from men being so damaged by what they have to endure that they can no longer do the work to keep society running. Right? That's where it's going to come from. And this message is not a popular one. So again, thank you to everybody who supported us in continuing to bring this message to the world, as it were. And if you want to make sure that we can continue, please go to feedthebadger.com/support. And if you want to send us a message about anything that we've talked about during this show, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And if you want to join us for extra content and join our community, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/subscribe. So thank you again to everybody who supported us and has allowed us to continue to bring this message to the world. It's a very important one. And it seems like very few people can really, really understand it and really get behind it. All right. There you go, Brian.
All right. Do you have any thank yous or no?
Oh, yes. I guess, yep, we have 2 thank yous.
All right.
Sorry, guys. This is just bumming me out. Because you're right.
It's all right. She's still young. But go ahead.
He gives us $25. Thank you, Craig C.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come again.
And there was another one. I just have to get to it.
Okay.
It just takes a moment because it's a little bit laggy.
I see.
Okay. Damon J gives us $25. So thank you, Damon J.
Thank you, Damon.
Okay, well, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for supporting. And hopefully we'll see you for another month, if we make it, at feedthebadger.com/support. Back to you, Ryan.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. You'll find links to the Substack and the video in the description, so you can watch it yourself. If you want to leave a comment on any of those trees, please try to be constructive. What we want to do is basically get people to wake up, hopefully. So thanks so much for coming on the show. Please, please, please share this video, because sharing is caring, and we'll talk to you all in the next one. Enjoy the rest of your hump day.
They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.